very warm welcome to Miami Beach, to the final day of the Miami Royal Cup. They're under AP just now, quite light conditions out on the water. Azura leading by 10 points going into this final pair of races, we hope. We've got Stuart Struley on the water. Stuart, how's it looking?
Well, I think it's a beautiful day for all those folks behind me enjoying some time on Miami Beach. Just the start of spring break here, so the crowds are out. As far as the sailing goes, the wind not quite ideal yet. We seem to be setting up well, and then we just recently had a pretty significant shift to the right, a little bit of a drop in the wind pressure. But we are expecting this to build into a nice moderate northeasterly breeze and get in two races today.
Here's hoping. Situation then with Azura then. Azura have this 10-point lead. What would you anticipate their strategy being today?
Well, you know, we've talked with Azura, and they're in a situation where you might expect them to play it cautiously, but I don't think you can do that. And I think they said as much earlier this week in some of the interviews with Guillermo Parada and Vasco Vescano that this isn't a fleet where you can soft pedal anything. You have to go out and you have to be able to win the race. We saw yesterday things didn't go too well for them in one race. They picked up 7 points. So if any one of those boats that's sort of hanging around in second place gets a first and they get a 7th, it's going to be game on in the final race. So I would expect that the Azura guys were going to go out and they're going to really charge this first race, try and get the win, all but lock up the competition, and then that'll take the pressure off for the final one.
Yeah, I think so, Stu. I think that's pretty much what Guillermo Parada said when we spoke to him last night before he left the venue. He was saying that the only thing they really felt they could do was go for the wins. Any kind of defence, any kind of conservatism on this in this fleet really does tend to get punished. You cannot afford not to commit on the start line. So we will wait. We'll join Stu again in a few minutes. But let's have a look and see how yesterday panned out. We had a great day on the water. Again, a little bit of a wait to get racing underway, but really a good race. And this was yesterday. So welcome back to Miami for the fourth day of racing at the Miami Royal Cup. The breeze is a little bit light. We're going to go and have a little bit of a change of image. An awesome job by my man Mac. A little bit less windage, a little bit more Miami. Let's see what more trouble we can get into here. Meantime, it's been a pretty tough regatta for Bora Galari coming into the hot seat, steering Quantum Racing this season in some regattas. We caught up with Ed Reynolds, who explained the strategy bringing Bora on board.
So we thought, from a sail-making standpoint with Quantum, he represents a number of products that are really important to us. He's a very competent sailor, and thought that we would bring a younger demographic into the team.
So Lars, first sustainability meeting here in Miami. How do you feel it went? We're starting to get some impotence, some movement.
I think it was a big success. You know, the communication in between the teams and us, it's getting better and better. And I think most of them, they got the message that it's a partnership. You know, it's us as an organization leading the project, but the involvement of the teams is so important. And that's what we can feel. The interest is increasing, and I think we are getting there. But that's one of our key objectives for this year, to improve the communication with our ambassadors.
It was good. I enjoyed it. It was my first one, and I kind of sat back and listened and picked up some good ideas as far as what I can be doing myself.
So a delay before the start of race 6 until the breeze built. We had about 5 to 6 knots on the start line. Good start from Azura, Sorcia and Platoon all getting off nicely, but unfortunately Ran, Quantum Racing and Allegra all over the start line, had to recross, and a poor start also from Gladiator. The top mark, it's Azura leading from Sorcia and Platoon, and that was the order all the way round until we get up towards the windward mark second time round. Bernenasek come in nicely late on the left side of the track, come in to get second. That was the order across the finish line. Then Azura winning again, Bernenasek getting second, a Platoon the third, a nice fourth for Sorsha. Bernenasek starting to show a little bit of form and some potential with that nice second place.
We're a new group together, really 3 different cultures on board, and I think there's a lot of room for improvement, especially in my area of the boat. Michele and I have been friends for a long time, but learning how to communicate. And I think for him, really probably he's a little bit surprised on how rusty I am and how much information he needs to feed me. So yeah, it's a work in progress, but we're feeling good.
Race 7 then, much the same kind of conditions, still 7 knots of breeze, pretty light all in all. Sled, Gladiator and Quantum Racing all start nicely towards the pin end of the line. The pressure and the shift are on the left side of the first upwind. Azura unfortunately end up in the kind of middle of no man's land, caught in a little bit of calm on the first beat. So Sled lead all the way around the track to get their first win since Scarlino last year. Gladiator get a good second with the red boat. Preveza finish third and go into the final day in contention, just 10 points behind Azura.
Yeah, that was our goal coming in here, is to try to just have good, consistent results. Nothing brilliant, but nothing bad. And I think the team's doing a good job.
If someone offered us the possibility of arriving to the last day 10 points ahead, for sure we were going to be very happy to be in our position. So, as I said, glory doesn't last forever.
Still rolling then, the Miami Royal Cup after 7 races. Azura leading on 17 points. Second, Preveza on 27 points. Third, Platoon 28. Quantum on 33 and Gladiator on 38.5 points. The penultimate day of racing done and dusted here in Miami for the 52 Super Series Miami Royal Cup. Light winds for the final day. Azura leading by 10 points. Can they do the business and clinch the Royal Cup? Meantime, where did I park my Lamborghini? And should I wear the bikini? Eating a panini. We're joined by Lars Booking, our Sustainability Officer. Lars, glory doesn't last forever.
Exactly. First of all, good morning, Andy. Just one question. Where's your fancy hat? What happened?
The fancy hat is held for another day. Anyway, Lars, we've had an interesting beach clean-up today. We've had a meeting with the Ocean Conservancy, who are a local conservancy group, and they've tell us how did it go?
No, went pretty well. This morning we did it with Ocean Conservancy. They have a partnership with our partner 11th Hour. So we had 25 people joining us for a breakfast here at Monty's. We did a little bit like a motivational speech, and we talked about sustainability in general. We had some nice information about the situation in general. And then we went to the beach and started with our beach cleanup. And the good news is we found, the good news, at the end, good news or right news. At the end, we did something and we collected 160 kilos of trash.
And that, to be clear, that was in about half an hour.
Exactly.
No more.
Exactly, was something like half an hour, but we had 50 volunteers doing that. But 160 kilos for a beach where everybody said it's clean, I think that's a lot of trash what we found.
It was, and what was interesting for me as well was to have influence from other organisations, a little bit of inspiration, a little bit of an idea of what's going on around the world, and seeing a situation, for example, in the Philippines, where the trash that's ending up there, our trash, is incredible.
Yeah. I think at the end, when you have this kind of partnership, it's very important that you feel, that you are not living isolated. There are some other partners who are fighting for the same stuff as we do, and that's really motivating everybody. And having these people around, and they were trying to cheer us up, it was like, oh yes, we're doing a great job, and that's really important for us to do that. And it's good also for the involvement. It's good for the motivation of our own ambassadors, sustainability ambassadors we have in the different teams. So yesterday we had a meeting with them, and that's really important, to keep the people motivated. But as I said before, it's very much a project on the long run, so we have still some work to do.
We have some bigger work to do in terms of perhaps the technology on the boats and that kind of thing, do you think?
Yeah, we had a very good meeting with the people from RUN. They are thinking about having a electric engine on board of the TP. I think that will be a good step in the right direction. The other thing today was an idea coming up. You also have water filtration system at the beaches, because we still have the objective to reduce the number of single-use plastic bottles. And there's lots of proactivity going on and also creativity. The people start thinking about it. I think that's what we were looking for. Start talking about, start thinking about it, and then the small little details can make the difference on the long run.
And the beach cleanups, we will do one at each of the European venues. Obviously, we now go to Scarlino in May, but every venue will do the beach cleanups. Is that right?
Exactly, that's right. Here we did it with Ocean Conservancy. This year we will participate in the worldwide coastal cleanup as well. But the objective is to get the yacht clubs involved, to get the kids involved, and then to clean the beaches. That's what we did last year. That was pretty successful. But I think this year we will do even more.
Here's hoping, Lars. Anyway, thank you very much for speaking to us.
Thank you.
We look at focusing a little bit on Quantum Racing just now. Quantum Racing lying fourth on the table, as we've said several times over the course of our broadcasts. Bora Galari stepping in as a helmsman. It's been pretty tough for him stepping into this team and fulfilling the role as helmsman, where it's this little subtle changes, the subtle communications on the start line, for example, and the learning the idiosyncrasies of these 52s takes a little bit of time, and he's doing a great job. But it's going to take some time until he gets up to the very, very top level of this fleet. But we spoke with Ed Reynolds about what's facing the team as they go onto the water today in fourth place. This was Ed Reynolds. So Ed Reynolds, and the objectives for today
is to just do what we do well. Low density starts, conservative around the course, let our boat speed work for us. So it's integrating new people into the team. So we're probably not as consistent at the times where you really need to have that consistency over the course of the week. So just getting back to our baseline is really our goal today.
Explain the low density start.
What you want to do, you want to be in an area of the line where there's not a lot of other people. Allow yourself to do a really good speed build and live there, let the boat speed work for itself. It's been one of the cornerstones of what we've done over the last 4 to 5 years, especially.
So that was Ed Reynolds talking about the situation facing Quantum. They're on 33 points and the leaders Azura on 17 points. So going to be a pretty tough ask, pretty unlikely you'd have to say that Quantum can win this regatta. Quantum won fairly handily in Key West back in January, but I'm sure we'll see Quantum winning regattas pretty soon. Hopefully we're going to go and join Stuart Struley again on the water, see how the situation is. I believe we're still under AP, still quite light breezes, and that wind shift just requiring the course to be reorientated. Stu, can you hear me?
I can, Andy, and let me tell you, the breeze has come in. Maybe it was 5 or 10 minutes behind schedule, but good decision by Stuart Struley and his team to wait. We've got ourselves a beautiful 10 to 13 knot easterly breeze filling in here, flat water. A perfect racetrack for the final two races, the deciding two races of the Miami Royal Cup, and a great way to close out the North American Tour. We're out here. We got a lot of activity out in the water. We're just about to go under a parasailer here. So a lot going on Miami Beach. A lot on the beach, a lot going on the beach, a lot going on in the water, but we can't wait for race to get started. I suspect it will shortly.
Indeed, Stu. And we talked a little bit about Preveza and Platoon in particular. Preveza, if we remember, in Key West, were in position to certainly finish on the podium. Had a tilt at the title there, but unfortunately they messed up, or they were a little bit too aggressive on their final start. So what do Peter Holmberg and Tony Ray and the guys on board Ergen Imre's Preveza, what are they going to be focused on today?
Well, I think Peter said it best yesterday when you spoke to him. And it's just about consistent, I wouldn't say cautious, but steady sailing. And I would look for them to do more of the same today. I think they finally got some conditions where they feel their boat really goes well. They don't feel it's a great light air boat. I think the same could be said probably for Platoon. There's a sense there. I think that the boats do better in the heavy air. So I think we've got some nice flat water here, a little bit more breeze. And I think it all comes down to getting off the line. If you see Preveza get off the line well and give Tony Ray some options up the beat, I think you'll see them do well. And I bet on them in Key West. It didn't quite work out, but I'm going to go back to them today. I think they're the ones that come out on top from that heap in the battle for second place.
And the battle for second place is really with Platoon, as I say, Quantum Racing on 33, so they're 6 points off second. But what's your evaluation of the Platoon team just now? Again, a team which did well in Key West, were pretty consistent with one or two little hiccups, and here Platoon had an 8th, but otherwise they've been pretty good. What's your evaluation of the Platoon team as it stands just now?
Well, a tremendously experienced team led by tactician John Kostecki. He's got two of his longtime lieutenants there, Ross Halfro trimming the jib and Dirk Cheese de Ritter on the mainsail. And I think that's a team that is always striving to improve. And I know last night they were quick to bring the race mainsail ashore, and they were taking a little bit of luff curve out of the mainsail. I didn't quite get the exact measurements there, but they were tweaking the... I know, I'm sorry. I think it was 1 or 2 meters, right, Andy? No, only kidding. A couple millimeters. These are very minute changes, but they were looking to take a little bit of depth out of the sail and improve their speed in the lighter airs and also in the flat water. So I think today, if that change does help improve things, these would be the sort of conditions you'd see it in. We've got perfectly flat water here. So the perfect setup for a low drag aero profile. You don't want too much grunt in those sails because these boats do move through the water so well.
A little words too about the owner driver then, Harm Muller-Sprier, because there he is in amongst, the top 4 are all pro drivers, Guillermo Parada, Peter Holmberg, and Bora Galari, then the top 4, and then there's Harm doing well in third, and certainly with a chance of winning the regatta. But it's a big ask for him under pressure on the final day. It's a different aspect for an owner driver, isn't it?
Yes, but I think you're looking at with a gentleman like Harm Muller-Sprier. I mean, he is a gentleman that is under pressure in his business life all the time, and I think he comes out here, and one of the reasons he enjoys it is because this is a similar sort of environment. It's high pressure. It's win or lose, and the results are right there in front of you at the end of the day. So I'm sure he's excited. He has been sailing the boat quite well. I mean, they've been a little inconsistent maybe from Key West going forward, but that could be down to just the team gelling. John Kostecki is somewhat new to that program, having joined late last year. So they may still be, working on the communication. As we mentioned earlier, the same thing between Terry Hutchinson and Bora Galari on the Quantum Racing program. It does take some time to get that really tight relationship.
Just to explain a little bit more, because I mean, I spoke last night with Peter Holmberg, and that's another of the different aspects between the top pro driver like Peter Holmberg on the start line. Basically, Tony Ray says to Peter Holmberg, this is where I want to be on the start line. Then he leaves it to Peter Holmberg to get that position, to fight for that position, and to manage the risk. It's an entirely different situation with an owner driver like Harm Muller-Sprier. It's a little bit more babysitting, if you want to use the term. It's more telling him pretty much everything, the speed build, where he wants to be positioned, and just more or less controlling the boat. Is that right?
I wouldn't go that far as to say. I think these guys are very good, and if you spend too much time trying to direct the helmsman through every maneuver, how much he hits
no,
up
but I'm saying
down.
particularly on the start line, there's a very subtle difference between where you're placing an owner driver, where you're asking him to perform, and where you can leave a pro driver like Peter Holmberg to do the final 10-15 seconds himself. And I say Tony Ray's telling him, right, I want the pin, this is how much I want the pin, or I want to be 2 boats up from the pin, or I want to be in this space. It's entirely a very slightly different onus impetus.
Yeah, I think the key thing is what you said there is how much they want it, and that may be the situation. It can be tough for an owner driver who hasn't done the miles or done the number of starts that some of these pro drivers have to really be able to properly manage the risk in every situation. So I would bet that John Kostecki, if he speaks with Harm Muller-Sprier as they go into a start, that he's probably telling them a little bit more directly, don't go in there or go in there, whereas Tony Ray and Peter Holmberg, it's a little bit less communication as they get into the start. As he says, I want to be here, and this is how much I want it, and then he leaves it up to Peter to manage the risk in that situation and make sure he's ready. And as I say that, we are coming here, I think we're coming up on the 4-minute gun, Andy, so we're getting ready to get sailing. Beautiful day, really just perfect breeze. Absolutely flat water. I think anyone would just be over the moon to be out in these conditions.
And also very gratifying, very pleasing in a way to see Gladiator then absolutely mid-table in 5th place going into this final day. I mean, they've been in the wars this week. They had that collision on day 1. They missed the second day of racing as they brought in the replacement boat to the 2015 Red Boat, which had been racing up until this regatta. So to see them in 5th place is a huge achievement for the team.
It's a great turnaround. Of course, they have, we saw them yesterday do quite a bit of movement. They were the big movers yesterday. I think that was a lot due to the mathematics of the redress situation. But it still applies today. If they have some good results, they'll see themselves fall a little further up the standing. If they struggle in any races, though, that the impact is greater than just the number of points they get in that race. It does impact the average score they get for the 3 races they missed. So they are in a more significant risk-reward position than perhaps the rest of the fleet, as they can go up and down with a little bit more alacrity.
That's right, and Ed Baird very much a steadying influence, I think, as well as his obvious talents as a tactician.
Yeah, he's come in there. He's brought some of the knowledge from the Quantum Racing team, and I think it's not just the knowledge of how they set up their sails and how you race the boat, but it's also some of the institutional knowledge of how you run a really top-shelf program. And he's brought that steadying influence, as you say there. I mean, he is nothing if not a very calming influence. And if you see that video where they crash, one of the things that's remarkable is how quickly Ed Baird gets to the wheel that didn't get taken off by the bowsprit and is able to steady the boat, get it back onto starboard tack, and then let the other boats go through without any further damage. So he's a man who's seen it all, and nothing really phases him out in the water.
So we're just, how are we for time then? We're just around 2 minutes, I think?
2.5 minutes to the start, right about now. So it looks like most of the boats are on port tack here. They're coming across. We'll start to see things. They'll start to make their final tack. Some of them, of course, have a little bit more dancing to do, but I think some of these boats are getting set up for their final attack and then the approach to the starting line. We've got Brennensek furthest out to the right, followed by Allegre, Rand Racing, Quantum. Looking down, there's Platoon, Gladiator, Provetza Sled, Azura, and then Sorsha seems to be the one with the most interest in the pin end at this stage.
Good, Stu. Just a quick reminder to our live audience from around the world, if you have questions that you'd like us to try and answer over the course of the racing, then do post them on the Facebook page or on Twitter. And when we get an opportunity during the racing, then we'll try and answer these questions. We had nice questions yesterday, and I think we even managed to answer most of them.
Well, we do try our best, Andy.
We did indeed.
Andy, I have a little bone to pick with you, and that I had someone tell me that of all things they thought that you were more intelligible than I was. And the worst part was they're not from Scotland or England.
Yeah, well, that's not my fault. Not a good day for Scotland in the rugby, I have to admit, but never mind. We all have our cross to bear.
All right, so we're coming up on a minute here, Andy. We're going to be inside of a minute very shortly. We've got a pretty aggressive dance here. I think Tony Ray has told Peter Holmberg he wants the boat end, and he wants it to go on certain terms. He's there. He's going to be battling with Rand Racing for the boat end, also Allegre, and then Sorsha. That's the 4-boat battle for the committee boat end. Azura, they're staying out of the fray. They are down by the committee boat, down by the pin end, and pretty much all alone. So provided they've given themselves enough runway, they're going to be able to get off this line with just the sort of speed they're looking for. In the middle, Quantum Racing, they've got themselves a nice hole. There is a big grouping there. Sled, Brennensek, and Platoon a little bit tight. We're coming up here inside of 25 seconds right now, Andy. Everyone getting toward the line. Pretty much everyone has the room for a good start, except maybe Rand Racing. Provetza squeezing them up a little bit, making it hard for Rand Racing, making it hard for Nicholas Denstrom as they get downside of 10 seconds. Rand Racing, Provetza's a little bit tight on Allegre down to Leeward. This is all going to be in the final windup. Here it comes. Iron Pretty clean start. I did not see anyone exposed there. Nice job by Rand Racing, actually. They were patient. They waited, and they were able to get across with nice speed. I can also see Brennensek poked out down below. Quantum Racing looks fairly good. Provetza, probably not the start they were looking for at this stage. They were a little bit behind some of those boats, and they're going to be in a bit of a sandwich here. Peter Holmberg's going to have to work very hard to hold his lane as they head up toward the left side of the course. At the moment, though, this is perhaps the most even start we've seen this regatta. Nobody really in a bad spot at the moment, so it all comes down to the speed teams now. Who can get a little edge, who can squeeze the boat off, and who can create a little bit of room for them as they get toward the left corner of the course.
Looks like a reasonable start then for Azura down off the pin end of the line with a little bit squeezed, a little bit. They have, I think it's Platoon just on top of them.
Yeah, they look like they're in a good space. I mean, they had the advantage of sort of claiming that pin end, and they were able to sort of control the fleet from there on. No one got beneath them, and that is nice because it does give you the flexibility when you want to power out. Prevetta, the first boat to bail out, so they were the ones that have sort of had the toughest go of that start, although I do see a pair of boats down to leeward of Quantum Racing. Sled is one of them. I'm guessing the other is Brenenetech. Both of those boats are in sort of the second row at this stage, and they're going to be looking for their exit strategy.
So talking of exit strategies, Prevetta then the first to require one. And meantime, we're looking at Azura and Platoon side by side. Azura might just be able to start pressing on the bow of Platoon by the looks of things. But certainly Azura seem to have plenty of speed as they head up, paralleling South Beach. Iconic images, really. And a pretty reasonable start and a nice lane early on for Quantum Racing, Stu.
Yeah, they had a good hole in the middle. You know, you can't always predict those things, but when you have it, when it sort of sets up and you all of a sudden you look around and you find yourself with 2 or 3 boat lengths on either side between you and the next group of boats, you know things are looking pretty good. And they took advantage of that. That gives Orgulari the time to really nail the time and distance to the line and come off with a good speed. So they were able to set up in a nice position here. I'm looking over. I would guess that some of those boats in the middle, Andy, are in a little bit of a left shift. I think they're a little bit bow up relative to Prevetta here, which is not going to bode well for the Turkish boat. But it seems like a group of boats that have come over, Gladiator amongst them. I think also Rand Racing has popped over as well. They look like they've gotten into a little bit of a left shift and are taking advantage of that while the rest of the fleet steps out further to the left side.
So the breeze looks still reasonably even across the fleet, or do you feel there's more on that left side, were you saying?
I think the left side certainly looks strong right now. A little bit of a shift maybe, and perhaps a little bit of pressure as well.
Indeed. Anyway, at the moment, Azura leading on the Virtual Eye with Platoon second and Sled third. Gladiator fourth. Gladiator seemed to get away cleanly with some pretty decent speed early on.
You know, we were talking earlier about whether or not Azura would play it safe, and the one thing about that pin end start is that, you know, you are in a situation like this with such a good fleet, is you're likely to find yourself sort of pinned out to the left side. Now, if you want the left side, and if it works out, that's great. But if all of a sudden you decide that maybe you want to be more in the middle or you want to be covering some of the boats behind you, well, you're stuck. And right now they have been unable to sort of peel a Platoon away from them, unable to squeeze them off. They are getting out a little bit further, and then I think Platoon's rolling into attack right now. So Azura finally with the freedom to do what they want, but they have put themselves out on the left side with pretty significantly.
Looks like the breeze is pretty decent, around 11 or 12 knots.
Yes, yeah, right there, Andy. 11, 12 knots. We're just seeing some white caps sort of across the course. So beautiful conditions, flat water, especially for these boats. I mean, there's really very little swell out. Just a little bit of wind-driven chop. So really perfect conditions.
We are seeing the advantage going to Prevetta now on the Virtual Eye. The green line is with Prevetta on that right side, looking upwind. Credited with a small lead over Sled. How does that look to you in the water?
Well, you know, I said earlier I thought the left was looking good, so I stand corrected. But I am, as we roll up, we are not far. We're probably 100, 200 meters to the leeward of Prevetta, and we're in a pretty solid puff. The most breeze we've seen, this is getting up to 13, 14 knots. And if that's what they're seeing, you know, that could be using that to leg forward and get a little bit of height. And if you look all the way over, it's a long way off to Azura, but they don't seem to have the same power in the sails right now that Prevetta does.
I mean, obviously, our camera angle foreshortens the perspective. Is there any influence from the shore to the left there of the fleet?
Sorry, Andy, what was that? We're moving a little bit.
I'm just saying, obviously the camera angle is foreshortened. The perspective is foreshortened in this long lens. Is there any influence from the shore, from the high buildings and from the beach, or we're quite far?
I mean, this is very much an onshore breeze. So.
Yeah.
wind does tend to react to things. Of course, as the wind flow builds up, you do get a little bit of a effect that is actually in front on the windward side of the buoys, maybe sort of the buildings, the wind will be lifting up a little bit to get over Miami Beach as it heats up. But I don't see too much of that going on right now. This is a relatively new breeze coming in here. So I suspect that if that is going to happen, it's going to happen later.
So we're looking at the virtual just now, and still that lead with Preveza. Quantum, I think, furthest, or one of the boats furthest to the left, is now in 8th place.
I think Preveza's benefit is the one thing I seem to be noticing here is that, initially when the other boats tacked over onto port, I thought they had a better angle, but I think Preveza's closed to those boats. They haven't lost anything going forward, but they've closed gauge, as we say, in the sailing industry, which means sort of the horizontal distance across the course between these two boats, So they've gotten closer to those boats in the center of the track, and they've been able to go forward at the same time, or at least hold their bearing, which means that they are going perhaps a little bit better through the water and getting a little bit closer to the windward mark.
Indeed. It's that question coming in from Luca. Do the ley lines and the graphics follow the wind shift? Well, I think we had that answered that before, but yes, the intention is certainly is that the ley lines on the graphics move with the wind shifts, because relative to the geometry of the course is dictated by the position of the windward mark and the leeward gate and or the finish. So the geometry of the course moves as these marks move. They don't actually move with we don't take wind readings on the course, for example, and then set up the geometry of the course relative to the wind readings. It's the position of the marks.
I think, Andy, I was talking with John Rendell from Virtual Eye about that. He also mentioned that the angles of the boats play into that as well.
Yeah.
And they use an algorithm that calculates sort of how boats look at different tacks, and they factor that into the ley lines, of course, because as the breeze picks up, these boats will sail closer and closer to the wind. So the ley lines are a lot narrower in 10 or 12 knots than they are in 7 or 8 or 6.
So we're watching Preveza just now. They seem to be in pretty good shape. Both the boats that came off that right end of the line, off the committee boat end of the line, are now first and second. Azura and Ran Racing, then Platoon way over on the left, started off the pin with alongside Azura, are now in third.
Again, some nice pressure here on the right side, Andy. I can't speak to what they're seeing over on the other side of the course, but there is really some juicy puffs that are coming down this side of the course. More wind than we've seen since the opening day of the regatta.
What we're seeing on the screen just now is Preveza digging into what appears to be a knock, sailing a deeper angle than the boats further to the left. For example, Quantum and Berenicek sailing a higher angle and therefore more directly towards Mark 1.
Andy, as I say this, I'm looking back towards Preveza, and I think it's Berenicek down there. I'm not sure if they caught something or something went wrong, but they looked like they were slipping back, and then I just saw them with their sails out, luffing. So they may have been trying to get rid of something, a pot or something, or had some other issues. So they are well behind the fleet. So unfortunately for our friends from the St. Petersburg Yacht Club in Russia, the race not going well. Preveza now crossed Gladiator. That's not the one they're looking for, of course. They're going to be looking to see how they match up with Ran Racing. They've got Sled coming in here, Ran Racing next. I think the real indicator for them on whether or not they were able to recover. Not the best start they've had. We'll see how they do in this cross with Ran Racing and coming up in about minutes time.
So just remembering, actually looking back, I mean, conditions similar to back in 2013, I think, when Azura led the World Championships on the final race, final downwind. They broached and Ran Racing got past them and won the world title. And that was a fantastic day's racing here in Miami, and I think we're settling up for same kind of excitement, fabulous images, great conditions. Speaking of Ran Racing then just going round the back of Preveza.
Yeah, it was about a half out there, and Andy would be my guess. They weren't quite, in a position where they could take across and attack across and leave out Preveza. So I think they did the right thing there, which was to let them slide by and come out here toward the starboard ley line. You know, the boats on the left now, Andy, I'm thinking Quantum Racing, Platoon, as well as Azura, they look like they're into another significant left shift. I'm not sure if you're seeing it there
No,
on
for
the
sure, yeah.
virtual eye, but I suspect that's the 1, 2, 3 in the race right now based on the current wind direction.
Certainly, we can.
You know, if that is the case, it's a very smart call by Tony Ray and Nacho Postigo. They got what they could out of that right side, and it can be very tempting when one side is working for you to sort of dig in even deeper. Double down on your investment on that side, but instead they recognize potentially of a left shift coming. They cross the course, which is generally a bit of a no-no in sailboat racing. You sort of want to play your side, but I think in this case that they may be able to salvage the top 5 rounding by doing that.
Just give us an update on Azura just now. How are they positioned from what you can see?
They're out to windward. They've owned the left side. I mean, they started at the pin. They went all the way out here. They're now out pretty close to that port tack ley line, and they're looking very good. I mean, right back to where they were, with the exception of that one hiccup in yesterday's second race. They have been dominant. These are conditions where I think they probably feel they have the speed to sail with anybody in the fleet. They're not super confident in their light air speed at this stage, but in these moderate conditions, especially flat water, I think they're going quite well. And you can see Quantum Racing crossing in front of Provezza and Sorsha there by a good distance. That's the first indicator that the left side has really come in, and these 3 boats will probably be the top 3 boats at the Wither Mark. Good pressure. I'm seeing Sorsha heeling over quite a bit there. I mean, this breeze is really picking up nicely. We're going to have some really just cracking racing as we get into the second half of this race and race 2 today.
Yeah, I think that's... Boats are quite nicely powered up then. We're just, I think we were just seeing, we'd see a shot there of Azura if we could hold that. Azura crossing in front of Quantum Racing. Platoon lying second. Quantum, I think, up to third now, but still about 70 or so meters behind Azura. Provezza dropping to fourth. And nicely set up at the windward mark. Stu, we had a question yesterday about the yellow mark we can see in our picture, which is a kind of protector mark. Explain that.
Yeah, so as all the racing rules aficionados will know, there's a 3 boat length zone around the windward mark where the rules are slightly different from they are sort of out in the open course. And when you come in on the port ley line and tack inside that 3 boat length zone, things get very tricky, and you often cause quite a bit of that's where the most significant accidents happen amongst the fleet. So by placing this sort of leeward offset mark, which is set maybe 5 boat lengths directly to leeward of the windward mark, you force boats to come in below that mark, limits the ability of them to sort of come in at the windward mark and then try and tack and get around, which is I think when the worst things can happen. So it just sort of it offsets a little bit the setup for the windward mark and makes it a little bit cleaner as they come into the weather mark. So it really, we've seen obviously in this regatta is a prime example of the incident between Sled and Gladiator, what can happen at that weather mark. So it just makes things a little safer. They put that mark in there.
That's right. I mean, I think we introduced it, if I remember rightly, at Scarlino last year, and there's been no complaints about it. It certainly is a very prudent concept.
Yeah, so Andy, right now we're watching Azura coming right at it in a familiar position for this regatta. They're leading. They've got about 3 boat lengths to go. I think Quantum Racing is going to be able to get in front of Platoon here. Terry Hutchinson nailed the last quarter of that beat. He's going to be able to tack underneath Platoon and take second around the mark. So another pickup there for Bora Galari and Quantum Racing as they go in. Here comes Azura. They're going to go around the mark just shortly now. Team hiking out. Boy, great to see everyone out on the rail. And then Provezza, they didn't seem to make us out as well over on that left side, the top left. I wonder if maybe they overstood that yellow mark a little bit. I still think they'll get around in fourth, but there's going to be a gap between Platoon in third and then Provezza in fourth with a group of a bunch of hungry boats behind them. We're also hearing a horn here, so it looks like we've got a course change, Andy. I can't quite see the number from here, but there will be sailing a slightly different course back down to the leeward mark. So you can see the first 3 boats. There goes Azura with a clean set. We are in wind conditions where things can go a little bit wrong with the set, so you do want to watch that things get up there in the right way. Now, Quantum Racing going to get around. Platoon right on their heels. Coming in behind them is going to be Provezza, Allegre, Ran Racing. That's 4, 5, 6. Sorsha will be in 7th. Sled 8th. Gladiator 9th. And Brunetacek, after that issue they had down there on the first part of that beat, will be in 10th with a lot of work to do to get back into the race.
So the battle for second really couldn't be closer, with Quantum Racing ahead of Platoon and Provezza. Allegre going quite nicely.
Yeah, I think that's what you're going to see. These 3 boats, those 3 boats are really going to start to focus on one another as we go forward. I think, with Allegre, with Azura rather, out winning this race, they're really going to make it impossible for anyone to catch them for this regatta. Of course, there is the overall picture, and as much as we speak about winning individual regattas, a lot of these guys are focused on the overall standings.
Yeah, we get a little bit overexcited about winning regattas in some respects. It's not. It's the cherry on the top of the cake in some respects. And certainly for the moment, Azura looking to protect that 9-point lead or extend that 9-point lead. That's part of the risk assessment, if you like, in their starting and their decisions.
Well, I think that's some of the reasons that when you talk to the Azura team, that their strategy for the race doesn't change depending on how they're doing in the regatta. They still go out, they still look for the win. They're not afraid to wing it out to a corner. If Vasco Viscato says that's the way they want to go, because that's the way you're going to win this overall season. And certainly that's their goal after finishing second to Quantum Racing last year. I think they want to be on the top of that podium at the end of the season in September.
So you can see a few early jibes then down that run this time.
Yeah, we spoke with Hamish Pepper about one of the reasons on the sled team yesterday about why there seems to be such a commitment to that starboard ley line heading away from the windward mark, and he said that especially in light air, there's a zone of really disturbed air sort of below the windward mark, and if you jibe too early, you have to sail through that zone, and it really can cost you some meters. So I think with a little bit more breeze today, that zone gets a little smaller, and you may see some boats more willing to jibe around the mark or even jibe set around the mark and get a little separation from those boats that are going down the starboard ley line. But right now, bulk of the fleet on port jibe. I see Quantum coming over there. Provezza's still going hard into the left corner, but everyone else pretty much is jibed over onto, and actually it looks like Azura is still going that way as well, although I suspect they'll be rolling into a jibe soon.
A fantastic battle then for the top positions overall. Azura leading, Platoon second, third in the overall standings. Quantum fourth overall, lying third in the race, and Provezza second overall in the regatta standings, now lying fourth.
Yeah, it's going to be quite a pitched battle there. We saw that sort of different approaches to that race course, right? We had Platoon, Quantum all the way out on the left side, really looking for something. Provezza tried the right and was able to get what they could out of it to get back after that start. But they still have a little bit of work to do. They were, perhaps 100 meters behind Quantum Racing and Platoon. And if the breeze does hold steady, it's hard to make that up with pure boat speed. You're going to have to find a little edge somewhere to get past these guys.
So, of course, it's all on for Azura. If they can get a point or a couple of points on Quantum, they could win the regatta with a race to spare.
Yeah, and they're not backing off at all. I mean, Vasco it looks like they're just about to start jibing right now. Vasco Viscato's put Azura right back out there in the left corner. They are not playing defense. They're not playing cautious. They are throwing it all out there. They're going to get as many points today as they can and try and set themselves up well as the circuit heads back to the Med for the final 4 events.
That's right. We're just looking at Provezza going down. They are carrying on down the right. They seem to be going quite well. Good speed. Good pressure.
They do like their boat and a little more breeze. It is a Rolex design. They do think it goes well when the breeze is up a little bit. So, we've seen them sort of hold serve through the lighter racing earlier in the week. Consistent steady stack of 3 4s, and 5s. Now with the breeze up, now maybe they have a chance to pop into the first or second and solidify second place in the regatta. Looks like Quantum has got themselves a real nice puff there. I can see them a better angle, really just scooting ahead, charging down the run right now. Boy, they really got into something huge there. Also, probably a little bit of a change of direction. You can see a little bit of a curl in the knuckle of Spinnaker, and they are just scooting right ahead. If I was Azura, I might be regretting leaving them so far alone because I think Quantum's got the best breeze, angle, and pressure-wise on the course right now.
Indeed, we're looking at Platoon also. Platoon also seemed to be going quite well. Just according to Virtual, the lead is really in the balance between them and Azura. There's only 10 or 11 meters in it. Quite a lot of lateral separation, but a little bit of swell, just almost a wave there for Platoon to get their bow up a little bit.
Yeah, Azura just looks like they're not going quite as well, Andy. It looks like they might have sailed into a little bit less pressure down there. And I think their angle has got to be 5 to 10 degrees higher right now than Quantum, maybe even Platoon. Quantum just seems to be sailing a little bit lower than everybody at the moment.
Yeah, we've seen that before.
The lower you can go, of course, the better. You know, when you're going downwind in these boats, in any conditions, there's always a battle between speed and angle, and how you optimize that, how you go as low as possible, and as close to the rum line, the line between the windward mark and the leeward mark, and also how fast you go. So you're constantly, the trimmers and the helmsmen, and even the navigators in the back are always sort of balancing what the ideal combination of speed and angle is. And I think Quantum Racing appears to have really nailed it the first part of this run.
So yes, indeed, Stu, the Virtual Eye just starting to confirm that Platoon are leading just now from Quantum and Azura. Azura dropping to third, around about 40 metres or so behind Quantum. That right side not paying off for them in the meantime. And Quantum picking up that gust, that extra wind pressure down the middle of the course. Just now Platoon.
Well, Platoon is jived back, Andy, so we're going to get a crossing here probably inside of a minute between Platoon and Quantum, which will confirm the situation for us.
Yeah, I think from the way we can see it, Platoon would probably cross ahead of Quantum, but it's all going to depend on the wind pressure over as you say, the next 30, 40 seconds. There's Quantum coming back, converging with Platoon, and Quantum deciding to jibe and stay inside.
Yeah, Terry Hutchins is going to protect the left side looking upwind. Also a chance there to maybe throw a little bit of dirty air as he does that. And
Indeed.
I think he must have, Platoon must have felt they were in a slightly compromised position because they had jibed away almost as soon as Quantum finished that jibe. So it's the advantage of being behind downwind. You can throw a little bit of bad air on the boat in front of you, and Terry Hutchins took that opportunity. See if he can pick up a half a boat length or so by doing so.
Azura coming back on that right side though, Stu. They have some good pressure and a good angle. Nice work then. They just we can see they're on a little gust.
Yeah, it looks like Quantum might have been had a little piece of them, forced them to jibe away. So Azura took that chance to step on top of Quantum and do the exact same thing that Quantum did to Platoon a few minutes ago. Azura just did to Quantum. So Quantum back on port jibe, heading back down towards. From where they are, they're right in the middle of the course. So all options open now for Terry Hutchinson. He can really play the final section of this run. As he sees the wind, as opposed to worrying too much about some of the other boats. It's a good space to be.
So the little battle going on between Quantum and Azura is all to the good of Platoon, much more to the left. Provetsa then down to 7th place, I think. Sorry, 6th place. And Azura, I think, still making a little gain on that right side. We'll see the angle that Azura come into the gate. See how that plays for them once they jibe. They're going almost out to the ley line.
Quite a wide gate down here, Andy. You I think the gate we've seen in the past has been, 3 or 4 boat lengths. This one's probably on the order of 7 or 8 boat lengths. So if there's any kind of a bias to that gate setting, the one side will have a significant advantage over the other. So those tacticians looking at how wide this gate is the navigators will be really analyzing what side they think is favored and what side of the course they want to go to. Even if in this situation, if the left-hand gate, for example, is favored, we want to go to the right, the advantage may be so great that you're willing to sort of go around the left-hand gate and then roll into an early tack over to the right side.
So just watching Terry Hutchison telling Bora Galari what he wants for these.
I think you're going to see a Platoon come here first, Andy. I think Azura's lost out with that last jibe. I think Platoon first, and then Quantum second around this mark. Platoon looks like they're setting up, sort of pointing right at the sort of middle of the gate, maybe shaded a little bit toward the right-hand gate, looking upwind. I think they're setting up for a Mexican drop here. They'll be pulling the spinnaker down on the port side of the boat, on the leeward side, and then spinning around and doing almost 180-degree turn and heading back out toward the right side of the course. Of course, I could be wrong about that. That wouldn't be the first time for sure, but they're getting ready for the drop here, so I think I'm going to be saved the embarrassment of missing this one for the moment. So, and as I say that, I'm wrong. They're sliding fast.
He's listening.
No, here we go. All right, so there we go. I wasn't too far. Both Quantum Platoon really pushing that spinnaker, and what a great drop that was on Platoon. The jib's out a little bit, but that's all right because you don't want that jib to sort of pull the bow down, so it's okay to have a little bit of a late trim there, although that may be a little bit later than they would have liked. Quantum spinning around right behind them. So that's 1-2 around the mark. Platoon first, Quantum in second. Ran Racing should come around here in fourth, with Azura taking third. So the first 2 boats around the mark, they take the right hand mark and head up the right side of the course. Azura taking the left one, going left. Provetza should be able to get around here in fifth, so they did lose a boat. Nice run there by Ran. They were 6th or 7th around that weather mark. I think they were one of the boats that jibed early, and they really made it work for them. So nice job by Nicholas Zenstrom and his team. They've had a difficult regatta, so a strong finish here would be a great confidence booster as they head back across the pond. Well, you can see these teams are really pushing those drops to the last second. Provetza, their bow was basically at the mark before the spinnaker halyard was let go. Any the slightest problem with that spinnaker drop system, and that spinnaker's in the water, you're sailing over top of it, and then basically you find yourself in last place in a hurry.
That's right. That's what we saw with Brunnerseck earlier on in the week.
Yeah, so there's a leg ray. They're going to come around in 6th. Solid placing so far for Andre Soriano, Andy Soriano and his team. They haven't had the best regatta, so again, just like with Ran Racing, I think they'd love to get around and go with some confidence back there. I think that Sled on the far side coming around in 7th, and then it's going to be Sorsha 8th, Gladiator 9th. Brunnerseck still a bit of work to do on the leeward on the downwind leg. But we're all of 10 to 15 knots here. We're reaching towards 15 knots. I think we're quite closer to 15 knots than we are to 10 right now, Andy. So really, you can see the boats are powered up. The trimmers are starting to figure out how they can sort of flatten the sails out a little bit and sort of reduce the drag because there's plenty of power to be had right now in this breeze. Just as we head up the course, I'm going to keep my eye on Brunnerseck. They are coming in hot for that leeward mark, and they've got to get that spinnaker around the forestay to do that drop. A late drop here. They're just pulling it in. Oh, they're just going to make it. Boy, it was just a really late drop by Brunnerseck. They are pushing hard to claw back a spot or 2 in this regatta, not taking anything cautiously.
Yes, Stu, we're just watching Tony Langley steering the Gladiator. Some work to do. They're 9th place. But good breeze, as you said, top end of 13, 14 knots.
Yeah, and if the breeze plays out the way it did on the run, where we saw those passing lanes, you got to think there's quite a few opportunities as we head up this beat. Generally, because you're moving with the breeze on the run, there are fewer opportunities to pass because you're just sailing in sort of a less, you get sort of a less chance to sort of sail through the breeze cycle because you're following it downwind. So as these boats go upwind, if that sort of variability continues, there's plenty of opportunity for people to get past, hopscotch over a boat or two, and take an eighth and make it into a sixth or a fifth, or a fifth into a second.
Yeah, question from Facebook or from Twitter. Why no coastal races in the USA, and are any planned for Scarlino and the European events? Well, it's a question of how many coastal races we run over the course of the season, and they do tend to be concentrated in areas which are best for coastal racing. So I think we'll probably do one in Scarlino. We did last time, and certainly Costa Smeralda is. We tend to run two there. Possibly a short one and a longer one, and then it just varies from regatta to regatta in Europe. But we try to run a certain number over the course of the season. And with respect to Miami, then it tends to be a very much an open water venue, if you like, and less interesting, less challenging for coastal racing. Same too in Key West.
There's not much work for the navigators if you want to do a coastal race around here. You just sort of point the bow toward upwind or down, up the coast or down the coast, and settle back. Yeah. Nice pressure over here on the right side, Andy. So the same thing we're seeing Prevento once again leading the group out this way. They do seem to be going quite well. They're stepping into a pretty solid tough here over the next 30 seconds. But I'm not sure that's going to be enough to get them. They've got some work to do to close up to those boats up in front of them. Platoon really playing some nice defense there. They took an opportunity to cross Quantum Racing and Azura and get back sort of in the middle of the course and not allow those boats the opportunity to get any leverage on them. So Platoon, it feels like they've got themselves in a good position. Boat appears to be going quite well, and they're going to do what they can to stay in first place. They're not giving anything up right now.
And the battle between Azura and Quantum. Azura to the left of Quantum.
Yeah,
very evenly poised. There's really nothing in it. Azura very, very slightly quicker for the moment. A little bit more upright.
Right now, Andy, the one thing I'm seeing a bit of a bow-up move on Platoon. I think they've got themselves a little bit of a left shift there. So you can see some of the boats heading over there. Ran Racing, Preventa both on a starboard tack heading toward the left side. I think Platoon, they look like they'd be extending away at the moment. They seem to be in a very, very good wind shift. Quantum Racing and Azura, that's going to be, as you say, it's bow to bow right now. So as we get up here, Terry Hutchinson and Vasco, these are two masters of the tactical game. And you can bet they're sort of running through the steps on how they can get to the windward mark ahead of each other.
Boat speed's very, very even just now between these two. So that was a good run for Ran Racing down that first run, getting up from I think 6th to 4th, and in contention. They're
it looked like the run paid off, and it probably explains a little bit why the fleet was so eager to sort of head out this way, rounding the leeward market. Maybe just a little bit more pressure on the right side of the course. We did see Azura appear to get a little soft in that left corner looking upwind, and so that seems to be what they're searching for right now, is a little bit extra pressure out here. But it looks quite good. If you're Platoon Racing, you're a fan of the Har Mulius Spirits team, all is looking very good right now. They've really been able to stretch away. And you can probably give us an idea what the leaderboard says on them, but they've got to be out to 100, 150 meters at this stage.
So Azura and Quantum have split tacks. Azura going back into the left, in towards the beach. Quantum holding on.
There goes Quantum rolling into attack right now, Andy. Just going to start to come across. They've had enough of this sort of right side, and you don't want to get yourself too far out in a corner, especially if there's a concern that breeze might continue to go left. It does seem to be, oftentimes when a breeze comes in like this and it has yet to really sort of solidify, it's a little hard to get the rhythm down. It can be a little bit wacky. It can sort of shift left and then shift further left and move around quite a bit. So a good reason to sort of stay toward the middle of the course and be careful about how far you get out to one side or the other. And there goes Platoon. They're in a position they're putting themselves sort of on top of Quantum Racing, not in a position where they're going to impact Quantum Racing's air. In this sort of a situation where you're in platoon, you have a good lead, you don't want to force a boat to separate from you. You'd rather sort of stay on top of them and shepherd them up toward the windward mark, sort of by staying to leeward of you. And Platoon's done just that. They've given Quantum enough room to live below them, but not enough room to get any significant separation and potentially find a passing lane.
So we have another question coming in from Tockinson via Twitter. He's asking how old the Platoon boat is. Well, Platoon was a 2015 launch boat built in Dubai by Premier Composites, the only boat in this fleet built by Premier Composites. And it's a Vrolic design, very similar to RAN Racing and to Preveza.
Most of the fleet is from 2015, if I'm not mistaken, right, Andy? It was
That's right.
Sort of a big commitment from the owners to build a whole bunch of new boats, so you really came out with everyone, no excuses and no concerns about whether you had a slower boat or a fast boat.
That's right. We had nine new build boats in Valencia on the start line in 2015. So meantime, Platoon just have Quantum in check a little bit. Quantum seemed to have got away from Azura a little, Stuart.
Yeah, and I think Platoon, continuing to sail on top of Quantum. I would have to see the tracker, but I wouldn't be surprised if Quantum is closed a little bit on Platoon. They do seem to be going quite well. Maybe not quite as fast, but maybe with a little more height, with the wind going to the American boat. And I think Preveza and I'm guessing that's probably Azura. Hard to see from this angle. Coming back on port tack there, and I don't know quite where. Let's see, who is it? Whether it's Azura or RAN Racing, one of them seems to have disappeared a little bit from my perspective.
Yeah, Preveza making a little comeback, got themselves ahead of RAN Racing just now. Very little in it, only a handful of meters. But Preveza up to fourth on the virtual. Maybe we could have a quick look at the projected regatta standings, John Rendell. Platoon certainly the lead is up at over 100 metres. Yes, so Azura would still lead by 9 points as if positions are held to the finish. Platoon would go to second on 29, Preveza on 31, and Quantum on still on 35. That's as positions stand on the racecourse at the moment.
But the one disadvantage Preveza does have. The one disadvantage Preveza does have with their steady sailing is that, if you do get into a tie-break situation,
exactly.
The first tiebreaker is who has the most first and the most seconds, and they haven't had a finish better than third. Of course, they haven't had a finish worse than fifth, which is why they're up the top of the standings. But if they do end up tied, they're virtually in a losing situation with pretty much any boat in the top half of the fleet right now. Oh, we got a little flying fish coming right by the media boat here, Andy. He seems to be enjoying the breeze.
I wish we had someone here in the studio, but you get the best job.
It's nice being out here. I do appreciate you giving me the opportunity to come out here, especially as it got a little calmer. You know, those first few days, it didn't look quite like the vacation it is now.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, you talk about tie breaks. You have to remember it's a very, very valid point. We had 3 boats finishing on 49 points in Key West. Platoon, Ran Racing and Preveza all had 49. And obviously, exactly as you said, then Preveza dropping on by virtue of tie break against Platoon and Ran Racing. But that, you can talk tie breaks, but then, of course, Preveza also finished with a 9th in the 11th boat fleet in that last race.
Right. They could. The tiebreak was unfortunate for them, but they had every opportunity, right, to put
Indeed.
themselves in a good position. It just didn't work out in that final start for them. So Platoon's got a pair of tacks here before they get to the windward mark. Here's the first one. They're going to sail here for about 20 seconds or so. They'll go back. They should be well in front of Quantum Racing in second. Really nice sailing by Harmulis Freer. I mean, he hasn't shown any nerves here, any reluctance battling some of the world's top professional sailors. I'm looking back down the ley line. Preveza's had to double tack here. That's going to hurt them. They set up a little shy, and perhaps we're getting sat on by Quantum. So that will put them, I think, behind Ran Racing, or as they come in, they're going to sort of double tack, and that's a tough thing to do with the ley line. Better in these breezes than some of the breezes we had earlier in the regatta, where it's super light, but still 2 tacks that close to the ley line, that's going to cost you.
So looking at Platoon then, Stu, coming round the top mark. Harmuller Spear looking cool, calm and collected, focusing on the bear away.
Yeah, and a great indication of the breeze there. As you can see, everyone loaded in the back of the boat. You know, yesterday when the breeze was a lot lighter, you had the crew forward, 2 crew forward of the shrouds, and all the crews sort of bunched up in the middle of the boat. But the minute we get breeze on these things, you want to move everyone back to that widest part of the boat at the back where they get the most leverage hiking. Here comes Quantum Racing around. Nice job so far by Bora Galari. And it's going to be Azura Allegre with a heck of a beat here. So a real nice couple legs here for the Allegre team. They're going to come around in 4th place. Great job by Andy Soriano and his team. Chris Main, Colin Tactis, getting them up the ladder a little bit. There goes Allegre around. Sorry, Azura and then Allegre. And it's going to be Preveza, Sled, Ran Racing. Boy, they're all over today, huh? They 7th at the first mark, 4th at the second. Now they're back to 7th here at the 3rd mark. So
plenty of scope for place changes, and the fleet still looks pretty compact as we go down the final run of the penultimate race of the Miami Royal Cup. Advantage with Platoon in this race.
Yeah, Platoon looks quite comfortable out in front, but we saw Azura with the lead around the last winter mark, and they lost 2 spots by the leeward. So you can't get cautious, and I think as Azura Platoon here, they're not going to make the mistake Azura did. They're not going to sort of pin themselves into that left corner looking upwind. They're going to stay in the middle of the track. So they've jibed in this situation. They're going to put themselves right down the center of the course and enable them to sort of cover anyone from behind them that seems to be threatening their lead. And there we go. We're seeing a jibe set from Ran Racing. Now they did actually make a gain on the by playing the right side of the course downwind. So we'll see if that works out for them. They've went to a pretty aggressive jibe set there. Spinnaker still got a few feet to go. They're grinding that up to the top of the mast, but maybe not a bad move. You get a little bit of freedom. You get away from that parade, and you're able to sail this run on your own terms.
Just watching Sled jibing there. Separating away from Allegre and Preveza. So Platoon's lead round about 140, 150 metres over Quantum. Quantum in turn about 60 or 70 metres ahead of Azura.
Azura once again going for that left corner, Andy. I'm not sure quite what sees over there, but he's not afraid to go right back to it, even though it hurt him in that last run. Doesn't appear to quite be full flaming conditions out here, Andy. I'm looking at the crew on RAN Racing, and mostly bunched up between the helm and the mast.
Yeah.
So if we felt it was real flaming conditions, you'd see a lot more guys further back, and they probably wouldn't be taking down the Genoa, the jib rather, and putting up the stage. So they just leave the jib up, throw everyone in the back of the bus, and then hold on for the sleigh ride down to the Leeward Mark.
A question come in from Patrick Conde asking, is there any scope for on-board live coverage? Well, we do have a camera on board on Preveza from time to time. But it's a little bit of a question of resources and managing the cameras and also the cooperation of the teams. They don't always want to have a camera on board.
It's quite a competitive fleet, and when it comes to how they sail these boats, they do tend to like to keep some things to themselves.
So Platoon won the second race of the series, then went on to an 8th, but have gone 3-4 in the last couple of races, and of course finished second in Key West.
Yeah, really looking good, and in contrast to some of the other boats, Platoon did not take down their jib, Andy, as they went around the.
We see that quite.
They've got their jib up, and they've got really sort of in more of a heavy air mode, downwind mode with the jib up, and the crew just sort of focusing on the weight position of the boat, not worrying so much about the sail. Yeah, and there's Platoon just sort of setting themselves up right in front. They've got a nice lineup of boats there with Quantum Racing, Azura, and Preveza sort of all set up there on port jibe. So they just go out in front, make sure they have clear air, and jibe just to stay between them and the finish.
So we have another question coming in, I hope. Do teams have someone dedicated to race statistics and data analysis? Yes, certainly the top teams have quite often their principal coaches or have data analysts working with the coaching team or the coaches, and a lot of the time that's done on site, or otherwise it goes out to a third party who will analyse the data and feedback to the team. But as I was saying before, certainly with the Quantum team or the Quantum extended team, the 3-boat program, and they have data analysis all the time. They have a certain amount of data that is presented to them in the debriefs after racing, but most of it's done overnight, and then their morning briefing with the 3 teams in this situation, then Quantum, Platoon and Gladiator. Then they'll have a complete performance analysis from the previous day's racing. And I think James Line told me they had over over 1 million data points collected in each race.
Yeah, it's a game of science. You know, sailing very much an art form for many years, but this is really a technically intense activity, sailing these boats. They know exactly sort of how the boat is being steered, keeping track of the rudder angle, the heel angle, the load on the shrouds, how you're tensioned, all that sort of stuff. It's remarkable how much information flows off these boats.
So,
So,
Stuart,
Randy, I'm looking up the course at Platoon there, just sort of right out in front of Quantum Racing. I believe that the Azura sort of right behind them in third, and fairly orderly as they go down the run here. No one has been willing to sort of separate too much among that top group. They're all just sort of seem to have the same ideas about how the best way to get down the run.
Stu, a quick question. We've W. Martin's just asked us, or just said there's a front working its way south through Florida. The wind is shifting north to the left, so why go right?
Well, I think that when they get the weather forecast, they're looking at sort of two things, and the navigators, the tacticians will be looking at
that is the trend, isn't it?
The big weather pattern, but they also have to look at sort of the micro weather patterns on the course. And while the overall trend may be for this breeze to go back to the north and settle in there for the next couple of days, you know, it doesn't always do that in sort of an orderly fashion. It may flick right and then go left, and then flick right and go left, and just steadily creep its way. And
Exactly.
when you're sailing a 20-minute leg, you've got to take advantage of those little shifts. You can't always be banking on the big picture.
Exactly, and of course you can't always get there. You can have boat blanketing or protecting that side of the course, both upwind and downwind. We're just watching Azura then coming back at Quantum Racing, still about 130 metres behind, and this looking all the more like a comfortable lead, a comfortable win for Platoon, for Harmler Spears' team with John Kostecki. Calling tactics, let's not forget the strategist, Spanish wizard Jordi Calafat, an Olympic gold medalist, and of course America's Cup winner. Truly international cosmopolitan teams, Stu.
Well, I think all these teams are, right? Without exception, there is a broad mix of cultures. What was it Morgan Larson was saying yesterday? They've got, he thinks, 3 distinct cultures on board the Brunellesec team. I think you've got, Morgan, who's an American. You've got an Italian navigator / skipper and Michele Evaldi, and then a Russian owner in Vladimir Lyubimarov. So, along with the requisite language issues, you've got everyone sort of has a different way of approaching leadership and the control of the team and all that sort of stuff. So it's a long process to get everyone on the same page.
That's right. It's very difficult to really streamline the communication. For example, as you say, Morgan Larson coming into that team where it's a mix of Italian and Russian. And I think they speak English a fair amount of the time. Obviously, Michele Evaldi, Francesco Mongelli. The afterguard very much fluent in English.
Right, I mean, you've got a Kiwi on there. I think Simon Dobney's on the boat, right? A former multiple America's Cup winner, and Paul Westlake. So Simon from New Zealand and Paul Westlake from Australia. So a pretty broad mix of people. Here they come, though. Platoon, John Kostecki. You can see him down there trying to get a sight on the finish line. Not taking anything for granted here as they get down to the last bits. Nicely powered up. They've played perfect defense on that run. I think the other teams didn't get too crazy. The ones that are right behind them, Quantum seemed to be protecting second against Azura and so forth. So if that's the situation, it's a nice position for those guys to be in. And there we go. Platoon across first place. That will give them control of second in the regatta, I believe.
Indeed.
And then we're going to have the boats coming behind us. So very nice win there by Platoon. They really showed some great speed. I'm not sure they'll chalk it up entirely to that change they made in the mass, but in the mainsail. But certainly they're going to think that no evidence it was the wrong decision. Here comes Quantum Racing, another rebounding performance for Borgolari. They're going to be happy with that result there. And then it's going to be Azura. They still got, I think, one jibe to go to the finish here. And then a little tight. I mean, it doesn't look like it's going to be too crazy. Everyone's sort of spread out a little bit, so I don't see any opportunity for anyone really to pick up a spot or two in this last little bit.
So what do you think Azura will be debriefing after this race? I mean, they had the lead early on. Vasco took them out to the right on that first downwind. They lost coming up they lost to Quantum coming up the next beat.
Well, I don't know. Maybe you can tell Vasco he did the wrong thing, but I don't tell him he did the wrong thing.
It's not so much doing the wrong thing. When you have a lead, it's important to protect it.
It is, but I think this goes back to their philosophy. As they said, they're sailing to win every race, and when you're sailing to win every race, you're making the best decision you think for that particular race course. It doesn't work out 100% of the time. That's sailing. The wind is difficult to predict. But I think it's a debrief, provided you're comfortable with your speed, and I think they have to be given how they were doing in that first leg. You keep sailing. We got there's a leg break coming across. That's a disappointing result for those guys. I think after they got themselves up to fourth at that last mark rounding. So just tantalizingly close to putting it all. Big Greg. Porsche coming across, and we'll see Gladys here. Result for them. That race, they really looked like they had things in the right direction. Going to be, I think, when you get caught on something or whatever happened on that first speed, it looked like they got slow for a period of time.
Yeah.
They sort of dropped back, and then they decided eventually they had to steal, and they had to stop and try and shake it off. I don't want to talk to my team to see exactly what happened, but I think that's an unfortunate break. You catch a bit of weed or just something on the keel, and you spend 2 minutes going not slow, not sure why. Eventually, you just bail out, and then you get going again. But at that point, the fleet is sailed on. There's little you can do to catch back up.
So that's pretty costly. That's dropped a place down the table for Brennesek with that 10th place.
They just have had the snake bit regatta for Brennesek, right between trouble with their stickers and little. I mean, really put it all together.
That's right. I mean, flashes of brilliance. They've been up there. They've had 2 seconds during the regatta, but 2/10 in the starting with a 10th in the first race, finishing with a 10th in this race, and it's always been these mechanical problems or unforced errors that they've cost the most decent.
Plenty of speed.
Yeah.
Plenty of points. I mean, they've been up at the top and in heavy air and light air, and just for reason. They haven't come together. So, you might watch as they get over to the bed. Maybe they're able to put it all together, finally a little bit for time amongst the sailors on the boat, and they might be someone to watch as we get into the second half of the season.
But a better start that time for Quantum Racing. Nice, solid race for them. And confidence building all the time, I think, for Borgolari and the afterguard in Quantum. Sailed a pretty solid race, didn't they?
They did. And these, I think, the conditions, the flat wall, Harry said he felt that was maybe easier for comfortable in the boat. Last in, and just keep going. And, they all have, everyone has a tough day, even with the track record of Terry Hutchinson and Borgolari. So when those days happen, you got to put it back together and go back out, and they always are great. So, prize them up there, and we'll see what they can do in the second race here, because it's still all to play for, right? I mean, it's not a tremendous difference between second and this stage. Change it all.
So just looking at the images of Harmula Spear, just rehydrating. John Kostecki to his right in the grey shirt. Harm giving up the helm just as he relaxes. Has a little bit of downtime. Dirk de Ridder there just to the right, I think. And Jordi Calafat seated there with the dark shades.
They'll be without the jib away. I think you'll see that amongst all the boats too. They'll get the jib down. They'll pass. Can be a little extra work. You're going to put things right back up. There's not a tremendous change in the wind, but I think it's nice to start with a fresh slate every race. Rather, if you have to get into looking at when you have all of those sails, and these guys have 4 or 5 jibs to use depending on the wind conditions. You want to make sure you're all ultimately what is the sail for these got plugged in at the front of the boat. Also, of course, putting the sail in the bag protects it. You harm the composite sail, so anytime you sail out of the sun, you want to.
So, Stu, Azzurri very much in the driving seat going into this last race with a 9-point lead, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing they benefit is it seems that they have a race. It's a different points on them, so they have their best race, but they still increase their lead by 2 points. To them, Provezza for 1.
Sorry, just losing Stu there, I think, momentarily. Just looking at the four-deck team on Platoon. Pepe Ribas there, the boat captain and pitman, a very, very experienced Volvo racer and inshore racer, America's Cup racer, who's come on board the Platoon this season.
There's quite a bit of Volvo talent on that boat, right? Between Pepe Ribas and
indeed,
Misha Mueller up there on the bow, and Dirk de Ridder, John Kostecki. Quite a few miles, Roscoe Halcrow, quite a few miles around the planet on that boat.
Indeed, but Azzurri then, as we say, in the driving seat, Platoon looking good for another second place, perhaps. Provezza, Stu, what do you think of the Provezza race there?
I was at the Provezza race. They looked like they were going fairly well because they didn't have the best start. They seemed to have good speed upwind. I would wonder how they're doing downwind. They didn't have. They weren't making any passes on the run, and it didn't seem like they really had. Even though they had an opportunity and they had some lanes there, didn't see the. So, it'll be interesting to see what they can do if they're able to just with a little bit of freedom and really sort of win the start as opposed to having a good start. I think last time they had probably a low average start. They were on the line, as a lot of boats were, but they were in a tough spot underneath Sorcha there, and Sorcha just was able to get over top of them, underneath. So they seem to, again, it's that steady sailing. They never fall back, right? But I'm not easy to break through. You think with the and their ability to sort of never get too crazy, but they would pop out in a race or two. They seem to be sailing well, but hasn't come good for them in the complete sense. And right now, the win is need if they want the second place on the leaderboard.
So Azzurri then, I think, a 9-point lead after that third place in race number 8, of course. I think we'll get one more race. Shouldn't be too many problems there. Breeze is staying up. Indeed, there you see it, Azzurri on 20 points, 9 points ahead of Platoon. Winners of that race, Provezza in third on 31 points. Quantum Racing on 35 points. Sled on 47 points, taking over Gladiator's 5th place. Gladiator dropping to 6th on 49 points. Berenicek losing a place also on by virtue of that 10th place in that race. Mechanical problems in that race also are certainly I think catching something around their keel. Ran Racing in 8th now, 53 points. Sorsha with an 8th place, getting 56, and Allegra in 10th place just now on 61 points. So Azura, as I say, lead into the final race of the Miami Royal Cup. A 9-point lead. They really don't have too much to do, you wouldn't think, and should be odds-on favourites at least to win the second regatta title of this season. Quantum Racing winners in Key West. A little bit out of it here, but join us again in a few minutes. We'll go straight into the start sequence a few minutes before, and let's see how the final race goes. Welcome back to Miami for the final day of the Miami Royal Cup. In fact, the final race. Azura leading by 9 points on really having one hand on the Miami title. And we're going out to the water to join Stuart Strilley. Stu, how are the conditions looking for this finale?
It's hard to think of anything than what we had for the first race. I think the clouds are clearing up. The breeze is settled in right around 12 to 13 knots. The Oscar flag flying from the race committee boat, which means the pumping restriction that normally in place in the racing rules does not apply for this race. I'm not sure how much pumping we'll see on the 52-foot keel boats, but you never know. The rules of that rule is off, and these guys are free to get as athletic as they want when it comes to moving these sails downwind, especially the spinnaker. But beautiful day for racing. Coming up on 2 minutes here to go to the start. And we're really excited for this final race of the 2017 Miami Royal Cup.
Just to a point, we didn't actually emphasise too much in the before the previous start. We're on the North race course, north of Governor's Cup for the first time. How does that differ from the course in the south?
Well, I think that the key thing, actually, is the course in the south. There's quite a few cuts there. There's Government Cut. There's also another cut called Bear Cut that runs between Virginia Key, and I think there's even maybe now those inlets can make it quite tricky. I suspect up here it's a little bit more big picture. In other words, you have the Gulf Stream offshore running north, and then opposing that, you've got a little bit of south current closer to the shore to sort of the clockwork. Inevitably, when you have something running north, you got to have some water filling from the other side.
So we're just on 1 minute, 1 minute and 15 seconds, something like that. How's the start shaping up?
Yeah, I'm fairly here. We do have a couple of boats battling for the boat end, Gladiator and Bernasek is down here. Azura, they're down at the pin. Once again, I think own that thing unless Sled really want to battle for it, which I don't expect that happening. Working back from there, from Sled, it's going to be Provesta. It looks like Allegri is a little bit buried there. They're going to need to do some work. Sorsha, Quantum, middle, and then Ran Racing here. So Quantum actually coming out on port tack now. They're going to be in a little bit of a between Ran Racing and Platoon as they get closer to the start. So coming up, we're closing in on 30 seconds to go here for everyone lining. We've got Gladiator and Bernasek charging for the Ran Racing. They're going to take one extra tack in themselves, a little bit of separation. They saw they had some space there. They're going to take advantage of that. Coming up inside of 20 seconds here, Azura lining the pin up. They're going to get going there. I'm waiting to see maybe Peter Holmberg to get a little more aggressive. I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't see him sticking his bow out yet. Looking like it's going to be a clean start here. We're going to have all the boats charging across. Boy, they've really gotten themselves dialed in. That was the most even start. We've seen 9 bows, 10 bows going piercing across the line in unison. Everyone's got themselves a pretty good setup on the line, and now it's going to be up to the speed team, the jib and main trimmers, and the skipper, the helmsman rather, to see what they can make out of this. Very even. Quantum Racing might be a little compromised there in the middle. They're a little bit bow back on the boat system. I think Ran Racing to win with them looks like they're in a very good position. They're going to be able possibly out on the 2 boats to windward of them, including Gladiator. And then down below, as we move forward on speed, Azura posting out. Once again, a great start for Prada, but of course they're going to have to live and die on that left side. And then also seeing, I think, that Sled down there as well as Allegri. Well, the one boat I'm having a hard time finding, of course, is Provesta. They're the ones for battle for second place, just 2 points behind Platoon. Not seeing them at this moment, so that's not necessarily a good sign for fans of the Turkish team.
Yeah, Azura looking quite handy off that pin end of the line, just starting to see clear daylight between them and Allegri. Sled over on that side as well. Azura take the early advantage ahead of Gladiator. Gladiator, the committee boat end of the line once again for Tony Langley's team. Ran Racing really another good start. They had a good start in the previous race. Nicely launched in 4th place just now.
Just starting racing, which tell me the Cor Delari has really moving well, because I didn't think Quantum was in the best position coming off the line. but now they appear to be moving bow forward on Rand and then rolling over the boat to leeward of them, which I believe is Platoon. And so it's a really tight battle there amongst Rand Racing, Quantum, and Platoon for sort of the supremacy in the middle group there. Azura continuing to extend out to leeward. People gave them the opportunity, sort of gave them that. No one wanted to battle them for it, and they have made the most of it.
As you say, just images confirming that. Then we're just starting to see the bow of Quantum Racing extending very gradually ahead of Ran Racing.
There's boats tacking out. My guess, I think we're going to see Sorcia coming out. So they're going to be coming out. They finally had enough of living in everyone's center, and they're going to make a break of. But it's still amazing. Everyone came off that line right on time. The bowman and the helmsman working well in unison on each team. They've got their time down. Come out here and get across that line, which meant they were able to quite a while. We're really
So wide shot there, just seeing Azura then furthest to the left. Pretty much the same as he did in the previous race. They led early on, in fact, the first mark in the last race. There you see Sorcia and Gladiator lined up alongside each other, bow to bow. Wind speed still about 13, 14 knots.
As they're taking an early back here, Andy, they're coming out. They're not going to stick themselves in the corner as they did in the last race.
And this is a case of coming out and covering the majority of the fleet as soon as they can. Let's put it in the bank as soon as they can.
I mean, they were further, they had Platoon on top of them all the way up to the left corner. They really didn't have the option to attack. But this time, I think they had maybe a little bit better ramp up, a little bit more separation from the boats that were on there. And, when they had the opportunity to cross or attack rather and cross the fleet, they took really smart left. Extraordinary out there on the left side. When you have you pull enough separation, it's a real smart move. Come back, attack, set up a little bit toward the middle of the course, where you can always go to the left side and stay on top of the boats with the starboard advantage and gone out further to the left side.
So just seeing Platoon coming through the picture there, winners of the last race, presently according to the virtual in 10th place just now.
So I just saw Sorcia pick off both Renenis and Rebecca and lead them back, push them back toward the left side. So Rebecca's still in a situation where they don't have the freedom to do what they want. They're really being dictated around them are doing lane choices are a little sooner than they would be. They have a stronger start off that line. Far up the left side, still Quantum Racing, Sled, Alegre, Platoon, all continuing on port tack. None of those boats attack. Azura set themselves up a little bit to windward there. They're in a very nice position. They're all alone, clean air, and if they like the left side, they're certainly close enough where no one's on that left side is going to be able to get past them. So it's maybe a little bit more caution from the Azura team than we saw the last race. Well, that can simply be a case of just not being as confident that you want. And the first, Vasco Viscato had tremendous confidence in the left side, and he went out there repeatedly in that race and worked for him with points and points.
Yes, so indeed, Azura setting up nicely with the early lead on this first beat. Another nice start off the pin end of the line. Got their bows in front early on and have now crossed back
And that's exactly, Andy, no one can really touch them in this regatta, provided they finish the race. With a 9-point lead both out here, point differential is just 9 points, and with the number of first place that Azura had, not them on a tie break. So they pretty much have wrapped up the Miami Royal Cup. But, of course, there is a bigger picture of the overall season standing, and I'm sure they are looking at a chance to put even further distance between them and some of the teams.
Little cruising boat just seems to be sandwiched in between Quantum and Azura. Azura going back, or Quantum just tacking. Azura choosing to stay to the right of them. Great conditions, those two. Fantastic images.
It's just absolutely spectacular. Spectacular sailing conditions. I mean, think about it. Doesn't matter whether you're sailing a laser or a 40 or 52, whatever. This is the sort of stuff you want to be sailing in.
So Berninaset going quite well as well in third, bouncing back from their 10th in the last race, up to second now on virtual. But things not going to plan for Platoon. What happened to them, Stu? Did you see?
It's hard for me to see. I mean, they were down there in quite a bunch of boats.
Yeah, they're over in that left-hand bunch.
Yeah, down there. But I mean, they all out that left side. Just find yourself pinned, and you can't get away, and you're sort of going backwards. It's tough. And 10 boats. It's probably, it's not the size fleet where you can really spend a lot of time sailing in bad air, no matter how much you want a particular side or a particular lane of wind. The rest of the fleet is pretty much sailing in clean air, and if you're sailing in bad air, you're losing 2/10 in boat speed, and eventually that's just not going to work out, no matter how much of a favor you get that one side. And you should also get better rates. I noticed they had their between races, and everyone was looking over at looking out the keel and making sure that whoever had done that first race was really second race. If there is something to be said for Platoon right now, the prevents us having a great time. So the German team may not be, in the top half. Suspected more than enough place in this event.
Yeah, so Platoon making a little bit of a gain, getting up to fifth just now. They need to be certainly in touch with Quantum Racing or to protect their second overall on the for the regatta.
You have 6. I break, especially if Quantum is able to finish in the top couple in this race. Well, that may be true. That may not be true. I'm curious how many firsts they have. That would be the question to have.
So that left side looking pretty strong. The Allegra and Quantum over there. But the advantage line going backwards and forwards. Allegra, Quantum, Ran, Platoon.
And the teams that wanted to were able to get out there, and they seem to be working that to their advantage. Now I can see Azura attacking back there, maybe feeling a little bit threatened by some of those boats that are on their hips. So they're going to take one more step out there and probably sit on top of the boats that are up there just to ensure that they keep control of this race. Right now the left side of the track is really dominating the race, and if you're Azura, you want to make sure you're the.
In fact, Azura looking good there as they go across. A little lift for them, perhaps, to take them over there. Just as you say, just impose themselves, keep the fleet under wraps. That's Allegra, who are lying in second place according to Virtual just now. Azura just going to put it in the bank, stay in front of them. We're just seeing them rolling into their attack then. With Allegra, Andy Soriano's team in second just now, with Quantum in third. All these boats over on that left side of the course. We were just watching Quantum, in fact, going back at, I think that was Sled. So Azzurra's lead around about 35 metres. A good race so far for Allegra then. And it would be good to see Andy Soriano's team finish with a confidence booster going to Scarlino. They did well in Scarlino last year. And I'm sure to finish with a good result on the last day. It's always when you have a break as the boats go back across the Atlantic. Then I'm sure Allegra would enjoy a good final race here. Sorsha also up in third.
Yeah, I think at this stage, this is all the racetrack. Even as much leverage Gladiator has, it's been such a strong left racetrack that they would need a really substantial right-hand shift for the boats on the right, Gladiator and Sorsha, to sort of get back into the top half of the fleet. So it's all on the left side of the course, and I think you're going to see quite a bit of jockeying among those boats as they try and set themselves up for this long port tack into that yellow mark, the leeward offset mark below the windward mark. So that's what those boats are pointing at. They've got to leave that one to port side, pass it on the back, and head to the orange mark, which is a true windward.
So very little in it other than Azzurra having that lead over Allegra. Then it's Brunello Platoon.
I think we're going to see quite a battle here for second, third, fourth place, Andy, at this weather mark. I think Azzurra sort of there's going to be some significant chaos as these guys try and get in position. It often happens when you have everyone approaching from the port ley line. Really can make for a very, very interesting mark rounding. So I think this last mark rounding could be the most exciting one of the. You may coming into the street there, Andy, a tall ship. If I'm not mistaken, that's actually the Oliver Hazard from my hometown of Newport, Rhode Island, carrying a few people I know on board, and they're heading down to the Caribbean. I think they're actually going to Cuba for as part of their winter tour. So great
very
to
nice
see that.
For them. I think Stu was just saying before we lost him, I think there's going to be a very interesting windward mark with so many boats coming in from that left side and being very close on port tack.
Andy, I'm setting up here at the windward mark. Can you hear me now?
Yes, indeed, Stu. Go ahead. We're just saying how close it's going to be with these very, very even with the boats coming in on that left side, all lining up there. See where go ahead.
Azzurra is going to be comfortably in front here. Behind them, we got a number of boats that have overstood the ley line, this yellow mark. Of course, they have to pass this on their left side. So Quantum Racing, I think, prevents us back there as well, possibly. I think Sled. Those boats are all going to sort of have to bow down a little bit to going fast, get around this leeward mark, get around this leeward offset mark, and then come back. And I think as they get here, they're going to be right in with Brunello. And just looking back, behind us, I saw Platoon tap, and right underneath Brunello, who waved the flag, potentially hoping for a penalty. I'm not sure what the umpires have done, although I haven't seen anything out of Platoon, so I suspect they have waved it off. Here goes Andy Soriano. He's in a position to round in second place. Actually fairly tight. I thought Azzurra might have a bigger lead. It's a very, very competitive race all the way through.
Platoon coming through in third then, so good recovery for Platoon.
Yeah, very nice from Platoon. They're going to get around in third. Brunello fourth. Looks like Rand Racing in fifth. Prevention is going to be the hard luck boat out of this situation. They probably are going to get around here in 10th. Not going their way. Unable to get off that line. And Quantum, given their situation, you might have thought they would have come up. I think a couple of boats overstood that lay line, maybe gave up a boat length or two, and that boats on the right side to squeeze in front of them as they got around to the mark. So Gladiator coming across in 7th, Sled 8th, Sorcha 9th, Preveza 10th. That's going to be your lineup around the weather mark. To see the first boat setting and getting away there, Azura with a clean set, Alegre with a clean set, Platoon going into the set. Comfortably, they're really in a good situation to secure the second place in the regatta, and probably strong position, second place, I would suspect, in the overall standings as they head back to Europe if everything's the way it is right now. But it's very tough. It's basically it's a boat length or two, maybe three between each boat down the line here. So it's not we're looking at maybe a minute or so difference between first and last. Plenty of room to make that up as these guys go around the track. So no one is out of the game here. Even Preveza and Sorcha here back there in 10th and 9th respectively. There's still a lot of opportunity for those guys to move up. And you're going to see quite a bit of action as they get down the run.
Well, team that do need to move up are Preveza then. Preveza losing out their third step in the podium just now to Quantum Racing. They need
that'll be heartbreaking for the Preveza.
Yep.
After having a similar thing happen in Key West, they are clearly looking to not have a similar last race fiasco. But they currently have them. That's what they have on their hands right now. So they got some work to do.
So meantime, Platoon looking good for their second place in a row. Second in Key West.
Well, you mentioned cool. It'd be really interesting to see how they sort of were able to extricate themselves from that situation. And I suspect, what really was a lot about when you have all those boats sort of crowded over there in the left corner. It's all about how you get back. And picking that lane to get back is sometimes a little tough. Maybe a boat doesn't tack on you that could, and tacks on another boat that might be a little bit closer to them in the overall standings or in that race in particular. But they were able to sort of escape from there, power across, and then the top right seemed to have a little bit of something working to bring those guys back into play because they nailed it.
So good downwind conditions as we watch Azura leading Alegre down the first run of race number 9, our last race here in Miami. Azura on course for the second available title on our North American tour. Disappointed in Key West when they finished in 5th place, 7 points off the top of the table. But they really have got it together very nicely here in Miami. That one bad race for Azura yesterday, they're 8th. Otherwise, they've been top 3 all the way through the week.
Yeah, it's a stunning performance. I mean, they're going to end up finishing, 9 races with half the number of points that Quantum accumulated in 10 races down in Key West. So, whereas Quantum averaged, over a 4th in winning Key West, Azura looks like they're going to be, just over 2nd in winning this regatta. I think all the way they are.
Yeah, they're going to finish on 21 points from 9 races. And in Key West, it was 43 points over 10 races for the winners there in Quantum Racing.
So we've seen the first boat sail out of the parade here. I'm looking back, and I can see, looks like probably, I think it's Sled and Preveza bailed out Quantum Racing as well. And pointing toward us, I would guess that's RAN Racing. So few boats starting to jive over. Still the leaders. Azura and Alegre are pinning it over toward the port, looking upwind at Solution. If we remember that the first run of the last race was the right side looking upwind that paid off, and the left side was a bit of a hole, a trap. So not because that doesn't necessarily going to pass the race, of course, but
So Azura just coming back with Allegra going behind them there.
Andy, if you're there calling it left right, you've had a very disappointing event. Do you get to the quarter and go for the win, or do you try to have and sort of go out in one shot at glory, or do you try and have sort of just a solid race to get that top three that's been eluding you the entire week?
Blaze of glory.
Screaming freedom all the way down, I'm sure.
Exactly. This is Miami after all. So no change then for Provezza so far down this run. Not too many options for them really. They are pushing right out to the left side, looking downwind, alongside Sled.
Yeah, I'm not sure how many passing lanes there are right now, Indy. I mean, there was a short here, but this breeze may be sort of settling in across the track. And when it does that, it doesn't sort of, it's not as shifty and as puffy as it was earlier in the day. And the options may really be limited. Not the lanes to get sort of space behind them. So maybe too much to ask after that. That's the speed they had. Plant pick with Azura and when looking down when they appear to have the best pressure. Although in the middle doesn't look bad either. I don't see a lot of wind out on that right side. But again, the right angle and you come back on that, it may change. At the moment, the right side looking upwind doesn't appear to be the favored for the moment. Quite a bit of heel on, I think it's probably Azura, maybe it's the Allegre out on the left side.
Allegra seemed to have caught up to Azura quite a bit, in fact, according to Virtual, and Ran Racing also going quite well once again on this run, Stu.
Yeah, they had it going there on the first run, so it was down to it's working on win. But when it looks back at Allegre, you mentioned they just seem to have a little more heel. And, if you're doing that, it may be because they've got themselves in a favorable wind to hold that angle and sail with a little more heel simply because that's how they want to go right now as opposed to sailing lower. So they think they're the ley line at this stage, and they're gonna take the speed as opposed to the direction. Got a couple of South Florida's finest tower yachts here crossing the course. Andy, they're going to come into your picture very shortly.
If only.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems close.
I don't recall
very,
giving
very
anyone
close.
permission.
Very close just now, Stu, between Allegri and Azura. In fact, our Virtual has Allegri on that right side of the track, making a small gain against Azura coming down this first run. Allegra now have a lead of about 20 metres according to Virtual. Platoon in third, Ran Racing fourth, Berenasek fifth, Sled sixth, Gladiator seventh, Quantum in eighth, Sorsha and Provezza. We'll see how it pans out through this through the gate. Nice, nice white horses, nice conditions. A little bit of chop building up now in the afternoon.
We've had this breeze running for a couple hours now, Andy, so I'm not surprised to see a little bit of a wave build up, and of course we also are getting some swell. Right now we're getting quite a bit of significant swell from that yacht that just went through, and there's quite a bit of traffic sort of going up and down the coast of Florida today. It's a beautiful day to be out, spring break, and if you had the means to get yourself out on a boat today, I think you'd probably take that opportunity. Unless, of course, you like sitting in the studio talking about sailing all day. And, of course, you'd be where you are.
My favourite thing.
So Zora jiving, and actually right behind them, I think that Platoon is right behind them, very close. So Platoon and Allegri, very, very strong runs. Allegri is setting up. They've got a choice to make here. What gates they want, how they want to play this mark. I believe they can get a jive in, and I believe they have the space to do that. But it's going to be great. They've got to get this, and then they've got to get the spinnaker around. They've got to get drawing, and they've got to get inside the 3-boat length circle before Zora closes that gap. But not a great shot. I think it's going to be okay, though. They're going to have enough. They look like they're heading over toward the left-hand gate, looking upwind. I suspect we'll see Zora as well as Platoon rounding the gate, the right-hand gate, and heading toward the right side of the course. So that left side stays off again. They put themselves in a position to go to setting up. They're going to own the left side. Zora made first. I think Zora's probably first as they round even, and what will really make the difference here will be what side of the course ends up playing out.
Indeed, both boats going round the opposite gates at pretty much the same time. Nice turn from Guillermo Parada, the helmsman on Azura.
Yeah, so I can hear some screaming out here, Andy. I think there's some people trying to set up their positions, trying to figure out sleds coming in here. Brennenisek, we got Rand racing around in fourth, and that's going to go around in that spinnaker out of the water. Sled will be behind them. Quantum, they may be making a last-second change, but nope, they're going to come around and they're going to take right-hand gate as well. So the bulk of the fleet going around the right-hand gate. I think it's been a little why you saw. I'm sorry, front of them, because that left-hand gate's a little favored, but that's the right side of the course. I don't too much of a disadvantage with sacrifice going around and pointing yourself at the wrong side of the course just to gain length there. Prevets has picked up a boat. They've moved up into 9th. Porsche, they're the last boat around in 10th. Still, for Prevets, if you were thinking about this regarding drop back, Prevets has now placed themselves back on the podium. So, the Turkish boat, although I think they had bigger things on their mind entering this race.
So the second beat to the last beat of the regatta, Azura back in the driving seat, just ahead of Allegri, splitting tacks just now. Allegri on the left, along with Ran Racing. Question asking what the tidal state out in the course just now, Stu, and how is it affecting the fleet?
Sorry, did you say what was the tides out in the course? Is that what you're asking?
Yes. What's the tidal state just now on the race course, and how is it affecting the fleet?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what the tide is here. There's not a tremendous amount of tide movement at this around here. What is important to discuss earlier is the fact that just anywhere from 3 to 5 really warm water coming out of the Gulf of Mexico, heading north along the east coast of the United States before it turns over to keep your home country warm in the winter and in the summer as well. So that north of the current goes in about 5 knots, and so that is a significant amount of water. And if there's any current right here, probably goes south. Wouldn't expect tremendous variation, of course. And when you speak about the current impact on racing, what you're really looking for most of the time is a variation between the currents. If the current is steady across the course, it can wreck a little play line to call and march. But in general, it's hard to get advantage one way or the other if it's steady. But where you do advantage is if it varies a bit. A lot of current, and that means.
I did, Stu. Yeah. So low water was 13:30. And high water, 7:40 this evening.
Out here, I would tell you what that meant. But unfortunately, I didn't do that research when I got out here.
Shocking.
Thank you for throwing me under the bus. Nice send off. I appreciate it. So Bernenasek, I can see out here, Bernenasek is the first right boat. Allegre still going out to the left side. It's sort of, they're not going to both of them to be Bernenasek. A right shift comes in, pressure here, they can vault themselves in short order. But it doesn't appear the rest of the fleet thinks that sort of thing is coming because they all seem to be favored the left side again.
So the advantage with Allegra then on that left side of the track, looking upwind. Ability to get to that left side seems to have paid off for Andy Soriano's team. Chris Main calling tactics, as I've said, this season. Nice. This would be a nice confidence boost for them.
I'm out here with Bernenasek, Andy. I'm not sure if you're seeing them, but
yeah, they're in our picture, Stu. Yeah, they're in our picture, Stu.
Solid bit of pressure here, and if this is the right thing, I see them. If this is at all the right ship, I'm going to see them tack over. I see a guy down there, see the runners, I see the ship trimmer coming down. So they're about to roll into attack. So this could be the ship that Bernenasek is looking for. A little bit of a right bend in the breeze. This will be the sort of thing, the leverage they have over the other. A kilometer away, maybe more. It doesn't take much of a ship, 1 or 2 or 3 degrees to the right side, and Bernenasek will be leading this regatta. So we'll see how that plays out as the boat.
So looking there at Allegri now with quite a comfortable lead on the boats on that left side. Azura just there third from the left of picture.
Yeah, I think Chris Main took your advice, Andy. He's not putting any caution into his game plan here. He is putting it out in the corner. He's going to go for broke here and win this race. Why not? After the regatta they've had, to head back home with a win of the race, I think that would put everyone on the right frame of mind as they get ready for the Royal Rolex GP52 World Championships in March. I believe that event's in Scarlino, if I'm not mistaken.
Allegra have Kelvin Harrop as who we saw steering the boat on that one day when Andy Soriano was sidelined with his ankle injury. Kelvin Harrop is the strategist, Will Best, the navigator.
They've tacked over to support Andy. They got themselves out to the left corner, and they're now going to make a beeline for that, the yellow mark. They've got to leave support at the top of the course. As I look back over Miami, over the sort of the downtown area, quite a significant cloud line over that now. That's that.
Yeah, we see that.
Northerly front. That northerly front, and that's probably sort of passing behind us, and not too much. Won't have much of an impact on the racing. Just on the other hand, sliding northward in front of this race. Certainly, you look to the north. There's barely a cloud in the sky, but she goes down. It's quite cloudy, and there might be a little bit of rain over Miami to free us when we get back to the harbor. So Andy, where does the leader line stand between Bernenasek out here on the right side and Allegre out on the left? Still the left side winning?
Yeah, pretty much. Allegra Azura platoon we have. Ran Racing Gladiator. So I don't think Azura will be too concerned. In the meantime, Quantum down in 8th place at the moment. So Platoon looking good still for 2nd overall at this regatta. And if the podium remained the same as it stands just now, that Platoon would be the only boat to finish on the podium, which also was on the podium in Key West.
It speaks to the level of this fleet. I mean, there really is not much between these boats on any given day. And, they all talk about sort of what boat is better in what condition, but I think that the differences are so minute and there's so much adjustment that can go on. It's not surprising to see, a boat look good on one day and not so good on the next day in the same sort of condition.
And I think this would be enough to take Allegra off the bottom of the leaderboard if they win this race. A nice way to finish the North American Tour for Andy Soriano.
The first of that group of boats coming by. It looks like they're probably going to be behind Andy, where the Russian boat is going to cross relative to those first few boats coming in from the left side.
Meantime, Tony Langley's Gladiator going quite well in 5th place. Did not really profit on that right side of the first beat, and we're well down. They were second to last. They were 9th position round the windward mark. First time up, got up to 7th by the leeward gate, and taking another place just now. We're certainly battling with Brunendisek between 6th and 7th. So progress in the right direction for Tony Langley's team for Gladiator. My understanding is that the damaged boat will be on a ship, I think, on Tuesday, heading to Europe, where it will go to Persico and will be repaired there with the supervision of the original builders of the boat, Longitude Zero.
For repair either, Andy. It's not just a patch job. It sounds like they're going to
absolutely. I mean,
remove a significant portion of the boat and replace it.
That's right? I mean, I think the decision is yet to be made how big that proportion will be, but it's you cannot just patch the hole or even cut out a section and replace it. It's pretty much replacing the back section of the boat.
As composite design, it's all sort of one piece. And,
yeah.
Right? The structure of the boat, the strength of the boat comes so much from every little bit that you really have to have a precision part. Has to be sort of engineered as one component as opposed to patch the way you could an old fiberglass boat. I'm seeing Andy down here, Quantum Racing, ducking behind Sorsha. Probably not a good sign for Quantum Racing if they're in front of anyone. Probably just going to prevent. So a tough race, tough final race here for the Quantum so far. They do have some room to still make up some ground. And this cloud line, Andy, is definitely sort of sliding northward. I think these guys, this final run is going to be largely in the shade as this cloud line overcomes the course. I'm not quite sure what that's going to mean for the breeze. The change may be behind that, for example. But we're certainly going to have the cloud line sort of sliding over the track as these guys turn and head downwind. Of course, in the meantime, the cloud line providing some dramatic backlighting for the fleet. Always
Indeed.
some of the spectacular images, and I'm sure the photography team out here, led by Nico Martinez, will be capturing every second of it. I can see him over here to our right at the Windward Mark, getting those images that you'll see on the websites and across the sailing media tomorrow.
And today, in fact.
Yeah, so sorry.
You're so old school.
Tomorrow in Australia, Andy. Tomorrow in Australia.
Exactly. You're so old school. This is the digital age.
But when I get back and I get to cut and paste my newsletter together, Andy, they'll be ready to go.
You're still using the scalpel and wax.
Of course. It's nothing like the old art form. But let's get back to the thing at hand here. Allegre continuing to hold. They're closing in on the Windward Mark. They've got just a couple boat lengths left. Here they come. Very nice job. They've been able to sort of do what they've been unable to do all regatta, which sort of hold on to a good position. They haven't been exclusively in the back. They've had some moments up front. You can hear the sheets getting eased there. Runner coming off, chip sheet coming off, Ran Racing. Nice job for those guys. This is going to be potentially their best finish of the regatta. They come across. So a couple of boats have struggled today, leading the group around. Sort of very shy on the ley line, but I think they're going to make it. They'll be around in third. Steady performance to sort of lock up this race, and then just a slight luff up there by Guillermo Parada to get around the mark, and Platoon in fourth. Then we'll have a little bit of a gap back to the next crew.
So Stuart, yes, just give us the roundings then at the Windward Mark.
Yeah, so the Windward Mark will go right on the offset now. It's going to be Allegre heading downwind.
Yeah.
They've got the kite up. And then we're going to have Ran Racing in second, Azura in third, Platoon in fourth. And then Sled will come around fifth. Japanese boat showing you a little bit of its rudder there. Brennesek will be sixth. So a little bit more space between the boats. We sort of have two groups here. The first four boats, and then the bottom five boats, and sort of just one boat sort of floating there in the middle. The Sled guys are just a little bit on their own for the moment. Do have a pretty significant battle here for the last couple spots. Quantum Racing tacking right now underneath Sorsha. Provetza crossing behind them in 10th place, but they're going to be right on the tails of those two boats as they head downwind. And, of course, Provetza is going to want to stay close to Quantum. They do have a 4-point lead over Quantum, but they need to stay within 3 places of them because they would lose the tiebreak if they want to stay on the podium for this event. So right now, the work list for Provetza is to stay close to Quantum. Imagine they will be shadowing them down the run and hope that Quantum doesn't sneak past Gladiator or Brennesek and put enough boats between them to leapfrog them in the overall standing. So I think we're going to get a little bit lighter, Andy, as we get down this run. This breeze seems to be down probably in more in the 10-knot range and probably fading as we go down the run, which is good news if you're behind. The lighter and shiftier it gets, the more opportunity there is to claw back a few spots. Not, of course, what you want to see if you're leading the race. You'd prefer a little bit more steady breeze and a nice quick ride down to the finish. But definitely quite a bit lighter looking at how the sails are setting up. This is sort of a different run from what we've had for the first 3 runs of the final day of the regatta.
So Azura jibing away from the parade, as you call it, coming across to the left side, looking downwind, trying to find something perhaps. Moving away from Ran Racing and Allegre. Allegre carrying on down to the right with Ran Racing following them, then Platoon and Sled. Azura about 130, 140 metres behind.
I think that's a good move for Azura, Andy. Given the way this cloud line is sort of spilling over the course, I don't think you can rely on the form guide we've seen for the first 3 runs. I think you've got to look at this with a fresh set of eyes and maybe decide there's a different solution than what we've seen for the first 3 times they've come down this leg. So, a couple of boats.
If we could put the on the speeds on the boats as they come downwind, we'll get a better idea. But Azura seem to be going quite well down this left side just now, but very difficult to tell on the virtual.
Yeah, and they're gonna pop out of this cloud line maybe before they get to the finish. And if there's a little bit more breeze sort of on the other side, they're going to be in a good position to claim that. I can see a couple of the other boats have decided they're not going to let the Italian guys get away. Given how well Vasco Vescato has called this regatta so far, I think I'd be prone to following him a little bit as well. I wouldn't give him too much latitude. He's been able to turn whatever freedom he's had into success. Back behind me, I see Prevetta and Quantum. They both jive pretty much right after the mark. They're heading down as well. So this is going to be an interesting run. I think there's still a lot to play for in this leg. And I think with the way this weather is changing, we've got some numerous passing lanes opening up.
Yeah, well, let's keep our eyes on Azura then as they come down this final run. Heading towards overall victory as it stands just now in the Miami Royal Cup. Their first regatta win since Cascais in October. They won the final regatta of the season last year. In fact, with a scoreline which is almost identical. You just see Vasco Vescotta looking over or back up the track to see what's happening, see what breeze is coming down to them.
The boat that appears to have the best breeze right now, Ran Racing in the middle. If I look all the way down to Allegra, they look a little bit light and a little bit bow up relative to a couple of the other boats. Ran Racing, they've got their spinnaker really seems to be pulling on them right now, and they've got a nice angle. I would suspect they're closing in on Allegra. This might be Ran Racing's race to win here if they can continue at that rate. But certainly fickle out here. It's getting lighter, getting patchier, harder to see the breeze as you get under these clouds. The water sort of gets gray and it looks like a sort of a monochromatic look. Very tough to tell exactly what's going on.
It's interesting because we saw the same kind of cloud at roughly the same kind of time of day yesterday, albeit it came down more from the north than from over the city. But
yeah, you're right. It's a similar condition. The Quantum and Prevetta back behind us, and I think Prevetta, while they're not happy with their position in the race, I think they're pretty happy that they can just sort of stay on top of Quantum and assure themselves a 3rd place overall. And now it looks like Azura's gotten light, Andy. I think whatever breeze they had over here is probably starting to evaporate. Ran Racing, Allegra looks like they've picked the speed back up. So those two boats once again appear to be in control of the race. Appear to be going quite well down there, working down somewhat sort of the center of the track. I wouldn't say they're too far on the left side, but they're certainly closer to the left side than they are to the right side.
just interesting to watch the crew on Azura moving with the movement of the boat. As the boat powers up, coming down the waves, just moving across to windward, just powering up the boat a little bit more. Just 2 crew there, we see that again.
Right, the more you can use your body weight to move the boat, I mean,
they are
in a dinghy.
They're just like big dinghies.
Yeah, it's just faster. You reduce the rudder, reduce the steering of the boat, and you keep that platform exactly level. The foils work best, right, when they sort of stay on a consistent plane, especially the underwater foils. They really love sort of just being steady.
And as you say, the breeze has gone quite a lot lighter than it was early on. And Azura just dropping behind Platoon down this final run, according to the virtual.
I think Rand Racing, once again, I think they look like they've got another shot of pressure down there, Andy. They seem to be sort of sliding over. Of course, my perspective has changed a little bit relative to both, but they do seem to be powering past Alegre right now. Faster, maybe a little bit lower, and just overall, I wonder if Virtual now has them in the lead.
Not quite yet, but they're about 10 metres behind Alegre.
Yeah, they really, really had a nice run. Ado Stead
Okay.
just picked the perfect line down the track here. He's really put Nicholas Zenstrom's boat in the right spot, and they're really benefiting right now.
Little tear there on the kite on Azura. Not in a high stress area just now. I don't think I'll be giving them too many concerns, but they will be set up. Indeed, as you pointed out, Stuart, then Rand Racing take the lead.
Just had the whole time down the run. They've just had a little bit more pressure. And the same thing that happened to Azura in the first race, where they looked good in that left side, but they got so far out there, and the breeze just seemed to fade away. And I wonder if maybe, as you asked earlier, whether it's starting to lift off the water a little bit as we close in on the beach, and at some point it's got to start to get over all these buildings, and it just may just get a hair lighter as you get closer to the shore. But Rand Racing definitely continues to have a better angle and a little more pressure in their sails. Way back behind us, Andy, it's not exactly in your camera shot, but there's a really good battle going on between Provetza and Quantum Racing. It may be the battle for last place in this race, but they are sort of neck and neck and right next to each other, and just battling. Terry Hutchinson and Tony Ray have been going against each other for probably 30 years, and these not the first of these battles between the two of them. So
there's one boat
right now.
Stu, one boat between them just now. Or their Gladiator was calculated to be between them in terms of a distance to finish by Virtual, but should be okay for Provetza. Provetza close enough to Quantum, as you say, to hold on to third step in the podium. So the way
Rand Racing's coming across here, Andy. They've jived onto starboard, and I think they're going to consolidate their lead in front of Alegre. I mean, what a run they've put in so far. They have really made up some distance.
And what a beat before that, Stu. They made 2 places up the last beat of the regatta, going up from 4th to 2nd.
Yep, it's finally all clicking. I guess the upside is you are clicking and the team is going together. The downside, of course, is the last day of the regatta, and these guys won't get back together and sailing this boat for another couple of months, and they'll have to sort of see if they can rediscover whatever magic they found on this final race.
But certainly for Rand, Rand finished with 2/6 in Key West, so finishing with a win, as I say, with the long break into the middle of May before we race again. Certainly finishing with a race win is good for the team, good for the morale.
Not a guarantee yet, Andy. Alegre sort of positions up in a nice spot just to windward of Rand Racing. They don't have a lot of runway to sort of get down and blanket Rand and get over the top of them, but it's certainly a possibility. Both boats have one jibe remaining to get to the finish line. Rand's the inside boat. They have control of the situation, but the rules here get fairly complex based on whether or not the boats are actually overlapped and whether or not Rand Racing sort of breaks the overlap, and then the other boats have to jibe. Right now, Rand Racing right underneath the leg race. So if this holds like this, Rand Racing will have to jibe as they get toward the lay line and lead back. So very, very tight situation. Both boats are going to start soaking very low here. I think Rand Racing thinks they can soak down and make the mark. Right now, it's Rand Racing by about a couple of feet. Leg race looks like they're going to come out of the wrong side. This one, Rand Racing rolling into a very, very slow jibe. Very tight still. Very, very tight. Rand Racing, they're going to come across the line here. Oh, boy, I can give it to Rand Racing, but if it is, it's just by about a meter or two. Extraordinarily tight finish. Yet another one. We've had so many of those in this regatta. Platoon Racing, they will take third and claim second in this regatta. Nice event for those guys. And here comes Azura. Yep, you can see that tear in the kite. It didn't end up making a major impact on their race. They'll take fourth and claim the win and the overall series lead. Very strong regatta for the Italian-Argentine team on the blue boat. We're going to slide over there, I think. I'll watch the rest of the boats coming in here. Looks like Sled setting up for a fifth place. Gladiator might sort of come out with a sixth. Not sure what happened to Bernenetech. They're way back. They're probably going to be 10th at this race. They're jiving right now, but they've got a long way to go to the finish. So here comes Sled across the line. Of course, we are right now. We've got our camera on Azura, the winning team. Quite a strong regatta for those guys. Sled is now just about to cross the finish line, Andy. They will claim fifth. I think Gladiator will get sixth. Quantum is setting up for seventh, so that could be tight. Hard to see from this angle. We're directly downwind of the finish line, but I do think Gladiator will take sixth. Quantum seventh, Preventa eighth, Sortion ninth, Bernenetech, another tough race for those guys. They're going to be in 10th. So there it is. There's Quantum across the line, Andy. I can see it now. Preventa across the line. Actually, Bernenetech looks like they're going to sneak in, take ninth rather than Sorsha, and Peter Harrison will finish the final race here in 10th place. So a tough result for Peter Harrison and his team, but they certainly showed some promise in their first regatta in the boat. I think they've obviously got a pretty significant work list of both things they want to do to the boat and areas they want to look at and see if they can improve before the next event. But certainly plenty of potential on that team as they look forward to the rest of the 52 Super Series season.
So yes, to a good win, a regatta win then for Azura. What really made the difference this week for Azura, do you think?
Well, that's always a tough call because you can look at it and they look like they're always in the right place. Of course, speed is very smart, but I really think that Vasco Vescato had an outstanding regatta calling the wind shift, and I'm sure it wasn't him alone. Working with his tactical team on the boat, I'm sure he had a lot of help. And of course, the boat was going well, and they avoided any major crew errors. Sort of that's the triumvirate of any winning regatta. It's usually good speed, good tactics, and clean crew work. And for the large part, that was them. That defined their regatta. They didn't make too many mistakes, and they always seemed to be in the right spot. So really strong performance. So, I think anyone who's followed Vasco Vescato's career, whether it's in the 52s or the far 40s, knows that when he gets hot, he is an extremely talented sailor and extremely difficult to beat.
Certainly it's going to be interesting to watch them in Scarlino. Certainly,
yeah, for sure.
The form team for the moment. See how Quantum Racing come back, how they regroup after this regatta. They'll finish in fourth. So in fact, in the end, the podium staying as it was going into this race. Azura finishing on 24 points, Platoon on 32, Preveza on 39, and Quantum on 42. Sled staying fifth on 52. So moments to savour for the Azura team. Did not have a good regatta in Key West. They finished in fifth place. Gladiator then finishing up in sixth, I think.
Yeah, and I think Gladiator, you got to be impressed with that result for that team. I mean, they had every reason to hang their heads and just sort of sleepwalk through the rest of this regatta after that new boat got taken out in the second race, but they put their heads down instead and put their nose to the grindstone, got the boat going, and sailed quite well. A second in the race, one of the races yesterday, really shows them they still have some potential in that red boat, and that they can do it. They can hang with these guys. And even that last race there.
It kind of almost sets up a quandary for Scarlino. They're going to leave the red boat here, which means when they go to Scarlino, they're back to the learning process with the black boat, assuming it's ready. And so it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. Anyway, here's the standings then for the regatta, the 52 Super Series Miami Royal Cup. Azura winning the top trophy on 27 points. Platoon second again, as they were in Key West. So two second places in a row for Harmuller Spears' team on 32 points. Quantum Racing get third on 39 points. Preveza also on 39. Sled on 48. Gladiator on 55. Ran Racing on 58. Brunasek on 59. Allegra 63, Sorsha get 66. So in fact, Quantum and Preveza ending up tied on the same points, according to our tables. But surely Quantum Racing didn't finish fourth in that race, which is in our table. So we'll have to review that. It'll be updated on the website, but there's no mistaking Azura, the winners of the Miami Royal Cup. So some very happy sailors. And as I say, Platoon, Harmuller Spears team get 2 second places in a row. And very definitely one of the form teams. Made some technical changes to the boat over the winter season, bolstered their team, the afterguard, and strengthened their team, and that's made a difference for them. So Stu, what are your thoughts on the two regattas together then? What have we learned between Quantum, Key West and here in Miami?
Well, I think the first thing we've learned is that this is a really even fleet, and the competition here is incredibly intense. And anyone who thinks that these regattas are sort of decided before they go in by either the money spent or the strength of the respective programs, you have to just look at the results and the way that we had just one team on the podium, one team on the podium in both events, Harm Mueller Spears platoon team. So extraordinary racing. Really was a joy to watch these boats sailing around the track for 2 weeks in Key West and then up here in Miami. They are such just beautiful machines, and the racing was really tight. You really see sort of at the top of their game what can happen. It's never a lead is safe, and never anything that no one's really out of a race unless something really extraordinary goes on. So pretty remarkable sailing. It's been a fabulous week, and glad the race committee got the 9 race thing, because at times that will seem like a bit of a stretch, but they really did an outstanding job.
Well, Stu, thank you very much indeed for all your hard work on the water at both regattas. We will certainly miss you in Europe, but we look forward to the racing in Scarlino in May. So, and a very warm thanks to all our viewers, all our supporters who have watched over the last 3 days. We'll be live again in Scarlino in May, so do join us again then for the 52 Super Series. Fantastic racing, and thank you very much for watching.